Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Regional Housing Summit. Welcome, everyone. It is truly a pleasure to see so many people here today who we care deeply about our future of our community, and most importantly, about making sure the people have access to safe, quality, and attainable housing. Housing is more than bricks and mortar. It's about families being able to put down roots, seniors being able to remain in communities they love, and young people being able to buy and build their futures here. Creating neighborhoods where businesses and local economy can thrive. But we also know that housing is one of the most complex challenges facing our communities today. It requires collaboration between municipalities, developers, nonprofits, lenders, housing advocates, elected officials, and residents who are all here today. No one person or organization can solve this alone. That is why gathering like this today is so important. This summit gives us an opportunity to share ideas, have honest conversations about challenges we face, and celebrate the progresses that we've made. And most importantly, build partnerships and identify solutions that will help move Fitchburg and our region forward. Thank you all for being here, for bringing your expertise, your ideas, and your passion to the table. Your participation today is an investment in the future of our city and our region. And now it is my pleasure to introduce a leader who understands the most importance of housing, economic development, and building a stronger future for Fitchburg and our region. Please join me in welcoming the Mayor of Fitchburg, Samantha Squalia. Thank you.
Thanks, Maribel. Thanks everyone for being here. Good morning, welcome to our 2026 Fitchburg Housing Summit. We couldn't have done this without the leadership of Maribel Cruz and our housing and community development team in the city of Fitchburg, along with our presenters and our resource tables, our sponsors and our participants, and everybody choosing to spend your Saturday here with us talking about housing. So thank you very much for being here. Housing is one of the most important work that we do here in the city of Fitchburg, and it's also one of the biggest challenges that we face here in Fitchburg, in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and in just all of our communities. Housing is one of the #1 most important things that we have to deal with, and also obviously one of our most challenging. We need more housing. We need more different types of housing, really all styles of housing for all types of people. We need pathways to home ownership. We need opportunities for rentals. We need opportunities for people to remain in their homes as they age. And we need better ways to make housing that we have already more affordable and more efficient. So there's no single solution. This is why today's program will cover a broad range of housing-related opportunities. We have our housing production plan that we have worked with in collaboration with the City of Leominster. And this data will tell us more about what our Twin City residents need now and into the future. We have MassHousing providing their programs. We have first-time homebuyer resources, energy efficiency and home improvement opportunities, and new options that are available to the Commonwealth, like accessory dwelling units with, you can see our 24 by 24 backyard ADU, what that looks like to have a 600 square foot ADU here right taped out on the floor. We've seen a considerable housing investment here in the city of Fitchburg in the last few years. I mean, we are just seeing huge momentum. And we want to see that momentum continue while we are also making sure that we're creating opportunities for people at different incomes, at different ages, and throughout their stages of life. So the city can't do this work alone. It takes a collaborative and communicative approach with our developers, with our lenders, with state agencies, with our neighborhood organizations, property owners, the residents themselves, and the people that are willing to bring these ideas and these investments to the table. So everyone enjoy. I hope you get something out of today, learning about programs that you didn't know existed, connecting with our community development and housing team, or finding resources with our lenders and our agencies here to understand Fitchburg's housing market, where we're headed, and making that connection that might lead you to your next housing project or connect you with others that are working on this work. So thank you for being here, and thank you to everyone for organizing this great opportunity. Thanks, Maribel.
Thank you. All right. Isn't that wonderful? All right. I would like to introduce my moderator for today, Irving Rodriguez. Irving has been chosen because he has over 20 years of experience in working with educating, advocating for homeownership while building partnerships and strengthening our communities across Massachusetts. As a director of business development at EcoAuto and our founder of My Path to Freedom Ministry and Education, he's connected residents with trusted housing, clean energy, and consumer education resources. Special focus on environmental justice communities, so which is us, thank you. And his commitment to empowering people through education, collaboration, and access to trusted resources is why he was selected to be our moderator for today. So put your hands together for Mr. Irving Rodriguez. Thank you so much, Irving.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the 2026 Regional Housing Summit. It's truly an honor to serve as your moderator today. Housing impacts every aspect of our lives. It affects our health, our financial stability, education, energy costs, and then, of course, transportation, and ultimately the strength of our communities. Today brings together an incredible group of experts representing housing planning, financing, energy efficiency, homeownership education, and innovative housing solutions. Our goal isn't simply to talk about housing. Our goal is to leave today with practical knowledge that empowers residents, that make informed decisions, connects families with valuable resources, and encourages collaboration across organizations working to improve housing opportunities throughout North Central and Central Massachusetts. Throughout today's presentations, I'll be asking our speakers questions that many residents have but don't know who to ask. Whether you're a homeowner, a renter, a landlord, a first-time home buyer, a senior citizen, a contractor, a nonprofit leader, or simply someone interested in the future of our community, we hope you'll leave today with valuable information and new connections. So thank you again for joining us. Our first speaker today is Jonathan Berk, and is the founder of Remain and serves as the board chair of Abundant Housing, Massachusetts, bringing extensive experience in housing policy, community development, and strategies that support the creation of an abundant and accessible housing. Jonathan will present on key highlights from Pittsburgh's housing production plan, examining current housing trends, community needs, and opportunities to expand housing options for both current and future residents. His presentation will also explore how thoughtful planning, community participation, and forward-looking housing policy can help shape Fitchburg's long-term housing future. Attendees will learn about the next steps in the housing production plan, opportunities for residents and stakeholders to provide input through the city's public survey, as well as we're pleased to welcome Jonathan to the Regional Housing Summit to look forward to an informative discussion about planning, housing production, and building stronger communities. Let's put our hands together to welcome Jonathan Berk. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And thanks for being with us on a summer Saturday morning. I know this may not be your first priority on a beautiful summer day, but I appreciate you talking about housing, something that I'm incredibly passionate about and excited to share some of our findings and just some further information about the housing production plan we're currently working on. So really quick, a high-level overview here. So this is the City of Fitchburg with the Executive Office of Housing Livable Communities working on sponsoring the housing production plan, myself with Remain doing community engagement and strategy, the team at RKG Associates, Eric is here over at our table, and then Inez Land Strategies Group who's doing the zoning analysis. There's a strong team and a large team working behind the scenes of this project. There we go. And really quickly, what we'll cover in this hopefully 20 minutes and hopefully sets the stage for the rest of the day. What is a housing production plan? Some of our existing conditions. We've had about 200 responses from our community survey already from residents of Fitchburg, so looking at what those responses have told us. A little bit of housing myth busting, which I think is really important anytime you're discussing housing and particularly housing production. And then what's next and how folks in this room can stay involved and get more involved in housing production here. So what is a housing production plan? So these are typically done every 5 years in Massachusetts communities. This is Fitchburg's first. This was really set out to identify the needs for housing in Fitchburg, direct where that growth can go if it identifies that growth is necessary, and then hopefully unlock programs and tools that can help unlock the housing production that is identified through this process. And really hopes to keep Fitchburg in the driver's seat, right? There's something called SHI, which really designates that developers can come in and propose what's called a 40B project if you're under 10%. So right now, Fitchburg is under 10%. So part of this process is recognizing that how do we get Fitchburg to be over that 10% threshold and ensure that we're providing the capital A affordable housing that I'll explain in a second. There it is. And a few key terms that you'll hear from myself and probably some other presentations today. I said capital A affordable housing. I think that's one of the really important terms that everyone kind of understands and asks what someone means when they say the word affordable housing, whether you mean subsidized, whether you mean just general market rate affordability, things like zoning, which dictate land use rules as to what can and can't be built somewhere, permitting, which is how you go from proposing a building all the way to building it, missing middle housing, which we'll get into in a second, ADUs, which you're going to hear about a lot more from the folks at Backyard ADU later, and then Chapter 40B, which you'll hear a bit about later too. So when I talk about missing middle housing, I want to really kind of set the groundwork for what that means and what that is, right? So missing middle is a term that's kind of thrown around whether it's affordability or whether it's housing typologies. So these are kind of typically the spectrum of housing types. You have everything from a single family all the way up to a large apartment building. But there's so much in that missing middle category. And I think a lot of times when we talk about housing in communities, and you say the word multifamily housing, everyone has a different idea of what multifamily housing actually is. But that can really be anything from a duplex or an ADU in the backyard all the way up to a townhome, cottage courts, fourplex, multiplex. And a little bit later on, we'll kind of show what some of the folks in the community have said they would like to see more of in Fitchburg as well through this survey. And a little bit of our existing conditions. And just a caveat, this has been a lot of the work of Eric and the team at RKG in the background and Inez Strategies. This isn't complete, but this is kind of where we've gotten to this point. And I think it's important to look at and take a step back and say, okay, Fitchburg's population has grown in the last few decades, but we're still below peak population levels, right? That's back in the 60s, 70s, where we had about 1,000 more people living in Fitchburg at that time. So you may say to yourself, okay, why do we need more housing for a smaller population? Well, one of the key facts is household size since the 1950s has decreased by about a whole person. So you need about 40% more housing to house the exact same number of people. So that gets us to the really strong demand for today's housing growth. You also have, thanks to modern medicine advances, folks living about 12 years longer than they were in the 1950s. So those kind of things packaged in with a lot of other sort of economic changes and economic factors really shows the strong demand, not just for preserving the housing we have, but also increasing the housing stock that Fitchburg does have. And we were building a lot more housing back in the 50s, right? Ignore that number on the right. It's not right. It's not accurate. It's not from, we're pulling this data from ACS surveys. So the 2020s is not complete and it's not full yet. So kind of ignore that. But it's showing that over the last few decades, production in the city has gone down, despite the fact that populations have largely stayed the same and then started to increase again. And like I said, household sizes are shrinking. So we really do need to kind of begin to make up for lost time and missed housing production decades. And then when I talk about missing middle housing, that's actually a housing type that Fitchburg has a lot of, and that separates it from a lot of communities in Massachusetts. So about 60% of the housing in Fitchburg is not single-family homes. It's duplexes, it's triplexes, it's townhomes, it's large multifamily housing. So when we talk about making it easier to build small, modest duplexes, townhomes, things like that, it's really just allowing us to build the housing type that already makes up Fitchburg's housing stock today. and then looking at the age of our housing in Fitchburg. And I think that's something we're really concerned about when we do this survey process, is we have a lot of old housing in Fitchburg. I think a lot of folks in the room know that. A lot of that, I live in an old building in Salem. I understand how much repairs and maintenance costs and challenges come with that. And I think it's important that any housing production plan we look forward with in terms of production is also looking back and saying, how can we make sure we preserve and protect our existing housing supply, which is just as important as building new housing. Okay, so getting into what zoning says. So before I showed you a number which said that about 60% of the housing stock in Fitchburg is not single family, it's some form of multifamily. We're looking at some of the existing parcels across the city, and this is an important analysis to kind of take into account as we talk about what we're going to allow if we do pursue sort of any type of zoning changes or permitting process changes in the future. 76% of all the existing housing in Fitchburg does not conform to zoning. So what does that mean, right? So that means that minimum lot size requirements in a neighborhood are larger than what exists in that neighborhood today. So 48% of the housing stock in Fitchburg does not conform to a minimum lot size requirements. 45% doesn't conform to front yard setback. What does that mean? How far from the road that zoning requires your home to be? 27% minimum lot frontage, rear yard setback. These are all things to really consider a broad level of looking at the fact that most of Fitchburg that exists today would not be allowed to be built under the current zoning. And this is not just picking on Fitchburg, this is not just a Fitchburg thing. This repeats itself across Massachusetts. In every city and town, 76%, I've seen as high as 90 to 95%. Boston is something like 98% of the existing housing lots in Boston do not conform with the underlying zoning. This is a problem, right? And this is kind of why we're here and hopefully what this process will look like over the next few years. And then looking at our land use today, so when I showed that about 60% of our housing supply is some form of multifamily, and then you look at the land use in Fitchburg, about 90% of it allows single family, only 8% allows duplex and above by right. And I think that's something we need to talk about more as we go through this process, is really understanding that how do we essentially allow the triple deckers, the duplexes, the townhome developments that exist to exist in more places in the community, and what are the right places for that? And that's what the survey is getting at, that's what our research in the back end is really getting at, is finding out where are the right places where we could potentially just modestly increase density to allow more of the housing that already exists today in a lot of the city. And really importantly, and I think this has been one of the key sort of surprising things from this process for me and our team, has been what we've heard from the community. And we have over 200 survey responses so far, and it's really been enlightening. So really quickly looking at who's responded, right? So about half of the folks are homeowners with a mortgage, 25% are renters, 50% have a household income above $75,000, 25% work in Fitchburg, 16% work from home. But a lot of folks are telling us that they're feeling the squeeze. And I think this is not just a Fitchburg thing, this is across Massachusetts and across the Northeast. 6 in 10 households say they spend more than 30% of their household income on housing. 21% are spending more than half. The other part of this, which I hope is even more concerning, is that 60% of the folks who responded to this survey told us they aren't confident a child or a young relative could afford to stay in Fitchburg and raise a family here in 15 years. So when we talk about housing production and the need for housing production, a lot of times the conversations go to talking about folks who are coming in or coming from somewhere else. The survey is really speaking to the local need, right, and the local demand and the local concerns that residents of Fitchburg have. And this was another really concerning, there were a number of different things we could pull out from this, the stakeholder surveys, but we'll have more information on this later. But this is one that really stood out too, the forever home test, right? So imagine yourself as you age, and you'd like to age in your home, but is your home conducive to mobility impairments or things that might happen to you health-wise as you get older? We had 31% who said they're fine, everything's accessible, and they live on one level. 22%, if they wanted to stay in their home as they age, would need major repairs or renovations. And 33% would probably have to leave their neighborhood as they age. So these are all things that lend that factor of how are we better serving not just folks coming into Fitchburg, but how are we better serving our seniors and folks that are aging in our community. And this was also one of the more eye-opening results from this survey. So one of the questions asked, which types of housing should Fitchburg prioritize? 15% checked off the large single family on a large lot section, 62% said that the city needs to prioritize starter homes. That's smaller homes on smaller lots, with 51% expressing the need for small cottage homes. That is something that is difficult based on current zoning and current permitting requirements, but those are things we're going to look at addressing as sort of recommendations from this report. But it's really eye-opening that 62% recognize the need for small starter homes for folks to be able to start a family in this community, but also, and I question the term starter home sometimes because they can also serve folks who are interested in downsizing and aging in community in Fitchburg. And another choice of kind of where folks wanted to live and how do they prioritize where in the city they'd like to live. So 61% actually told us they would prioritize a shorter trip to daily needs and sacrifice a smaller home to be able to do that. 39% were actually willing to pay more or a monthly premium to live somewhere walkable to shops, grocery stores, restaurants, doctors, parks, daily needs. So something that is worth considering as we designate sort of where in the city we can start producing more housing. And an openness to trying new needs. And I think the folks at Backyard ADU will be excited on this slide that 61% of folks in Fitchburg were interested in building an ADU, or at least considering an ADU process. 48% of that was for family or an aging parent, and 13% would be for rental income. And the other 43% would consider being landlords and buying a multifamily home that they could afford to live in one unit and rent out the other. All right, this last section is on housing myth busting. And I think this is, it's last, and I think it's an important section that we don't gloss over, because a lot of discussions in a lot of communities around new housing tend to fall into the same traps of it's gonna increase the schools, or it's gonna ruin the character of our community. And I think it's really important to kind of dig in and really dive in on what some of this that we're proposing, some of the changes that may be proposed actually do mean and what the impacts looked like. So the first one, new multifamily housing will overcrowd our schools. That's the first myth. In fact, how many new students do 100 new apartments actually add? And in Massachusetts and nationwide, the typical is about 8 new students per 100 apartment homes. That at the high end is about 20, and actually thanks to Eric and his team at RKG, they found communities like Belmont that have some of the highest school systems in Massachusetts only saw about 20 new students for every 100 apartments that were added in that community. I think that's a lot lower, and this fact is one that tends to surprise folks when I bring this up. But it also should be important to factor into the account that a lot of school districts are actually losing students, and if you look at Fitchburg, and especially the younger grades from pre-K and K through 5, your school populations are now lower than they were 10 years ago. So that means that students that are coming up and rising through middle and high school will actually be lower than they were 10 years ago. There's the next one. Myth number 2, multifamily housing will destroy the character of the neighborhood. I get that a lot. I hear it a lot from other communities. I know a lot of public officials tell me that's their response that they hear too. I'm gonna go back to that missing middle housing slide, right? So it's important to remember that when you say multifamily housing, everyone interprets what you're saying differently. And everyone has a different image in their mind of what multifamily actually is. Multifamily covers a wide range of housing types, from duplexes and townhomes all the way to large apartment buildings. The housing production plan process is here to designate which types of housing and which types of multifamily would make sense to add to certain neighborhoods and parts of the city. Some of those neighborhoods may already have that type of housing. We're just making it easier to build it again there. In other places, it's how do we slowly and gently scale up the caliber of housing in those neighborhoods that preserves the quality and allowing more people to stay in those neighborhoods and age in those neighborhoods. And new housing burdens city services and infrastructure. And an important one to have context to. It's not necessarily always wrong, it's just important to have context to it. So sprawl and large lot single family homes out in large fields out in the outskirts of town where you have to run roads, and then think about below the roads where you have pipes and you have sewers and everything else that you're running out to those areas, and plowing it in the winter and maintaining that roadway and during freeze and thaw cycles, is a lot more expensive when you have less housing on it. And it's, a lot more expensive, and you're making a lot back in tax revenue when you have less homes on it. When you have more density, even if it's just modest density, you're recouping a lot more tax revenue, more folks are taking advantage of those roads and sewers and city services, and you're able to better fund those needed repairs and renovations. And finally, new housing will jam the streets with congestion. And I think it's really important. It's not necessarily wrong, but it's not necessarily right either, right? So not all driving is commuting. I think a lot of folks think that every time you build a new building, everyone's going to flee their home at rush hour in the morning and the afternoon and drive to wherever they have to go. Only 16% of trips generated from home are work trips, right? So if you think about on the roads during the middle of the day, there's traffic. Most of those folks aren't going to or from work. 75% of vehicle trips in the US generated from home are generated for things like shopping, errands, grocery stores. So part of our housing production plan process is trying to figure out, okay, how do you better put folks closer to those daily needs, those daily amenities, so they don't have to get into a car and drive to get a gallon of milk. They don't have to drive to buy a sandwich from a local shop. And the last, where do we go from here? Right, so we're at the middle of our housing production plan process. We've gone through the community survey. We've researched zoning. We've researched some of the restrictions and parameters around what's allowed to be built in Fitchburg. And we'll be producing a final report this fall. This is the whole team of Inez Strategies, RKG Associates, and myself. And it's still an opportunity to keep folks engaged in this process. And I think this is a really important slide to end on because we've had a lot of great feedback from the community, but I'd love to hear more, and I want to make sure we're capturing more voices than just the 200 or so that we've captured to date. So we'll have some cards over there where you can take home. It has a QR code. It has a link to our survey. Also, remainplaces.com/Fitchburg is where you can find that survey and take it at any time. So really appreciate you being here. Really appreciate the time, and thank you so much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Before you actually run off, I wanted to ask you a few quick questions. And we're also going to be opening up the forum for later this afternoon as well. We're going to be having a panel discussion in which we'll open the forum to allow the public to be able to ask questions as well. In the meantime, if you have any questions, I'd encourage you guys to write them down, and we'll be happy to answer your questions later. While doing your research, it sounds like you guys have done quite a bit of research on what's going on in the housing, and there's quite a bit of amazing statistics that I wasn't quite aware of. What were some of the findings that you guys found that really surprised you guys during your current analysis?
Yeah, I think it was the openness for new housing types. I don't think I expected to see smaller or starter homes. Cottage courts are kind of a terminology that are not necessarily very well known, but I think a lot of folks kind of may have done some research or looked it up and saw the photo that we included on the survey and thought that was something interesting. But it really, the survey results point to the fact that I think our folks are interested in seeing other types and other housing typologies in Fitchburg, and recognize the need for a future generation, right? That 60% stat who don't think that if their children can afford to stay in Fitchburg in the future means that I think there's a willingness to really address head-on the housing challenges that the community faces.
No, absolutely, especially planning for our future, especially with the fast increasing costs. It's a major burden where you've grown up in a community for your whole life, and then all of a sudden you find yourself within a few years, or even a decade, where you can't even afford to live there anymore. So it's a really big problem. If you could recommend one policy or an investment that would have the greatest positive impact on housing in Fitchburg, what would it be?
Yeah, I don't know if it's going to be one policy, and I don't want to steal the thunder of our report. I know Eric and his team are working on a lot of those right now. But I do think just based on the conversations we've had with officials and stakeholders and the survey results and some of the parameters and restrictions that will always exist based on infrastructure, I think that small, modest single family, the starter home, the cottage court are really things that the community has expressed they want to see more of. And I think there needs to be some policy changes to allow those things to happen. And more specifics will come in the future in the next few months when we get that report out. But
that's wonderful, thank you. And the research that you're showing is obviously, I hope you guys are finding this information very helpful. I know for me, there were some statistics up there that I wasn't quite aware of, so thank you for sharing that.
Thanks.
And this is just in closing for the people that have decided to join and learn. If attendees could just remember one takeaway from today's presentation, just kind of think about like what's going on in terms of like the increasing in pricing, the inflation, the rates, and when you're planning on buying your first home, or you're maybe considering selling that home and getting another home, these statistics can really help you with that planning. And there's a lot of resources here that you're going to be learning from that will kind of help you, kind of plan your next step, into the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Irving. Appreciate it. Thank you all.
Our next speaker, for more than 25 years, Geanie Melendez has been passionate about helping individuals and families achieve home ownership while building strong communities throughout the housing industry. As a relationship manager at MassHousing, she collaborates with nonprofit housing agencies, lenders, realtors, and community organizations across Massachusetts to expand access to affordable home ownership, financial education, and valuable resources. She enjoys connecting with people, supporting community initiatives, and working alongside organizations that are making a real difference. And she's very happy to connect with others who share a passion for affordable housing, community development, and creating opportunities for future homeowners. Please join me in welcoming Geanie Melendez.
Thank you. Awesome. Yay. You guys are amazing. Big hand to our sound people. It's still morning. Good morning. My name is Geanie Melendez. I'm a relationship manager with MassHousing. I work with a lot of the nonprofits across the state. I want to thank the city of Fitchburg, Madam Mayor, Maribel, and everyone that's here today. I'm really excited to be with all of you. How many are potential homeowners? Want to buy a house? How many? Raise your hand. Raise them high. Okay, we have a few. How many already own a home? Okay, there's more of you. Okay, so bear with me. We're going to start with the home buyers, and then we're going to talk a little bit more about some of the programs that are available to you as homeowners. A little bit about MassHousing. MassHousing is a quasi-state agency. We were established in 1966. This year, we're going to be 60 years old. I know this, September 18th or September 8th, we're going to be 60 years old. And we're really excited to be celebrating that milestone this year. MassHousing was established, and we assist low and moderate income first-time home buyers in the state of Massachusetts, but we do a lot more than that, and you're going to learn a little bit more about that as we move along. We have fixed interest rate programs, low down payment option programs, and we also have a job loss protection insurance that comes with you at no extra cost that you're gonna learn more about as well as homeowners. When you work with MassHousing, you're actually gonna be collaborating with one of our approved lenders across the state. We have about 95 lenders or so. In this space, I think we have 2 of them that are approved by MassHousing to do our MassHousing programs. When you work with them, they're the ones who are going to assess your income, your financial situation, what do you want to do, and hopefully find a good program for you. When MassHousing comes in, they come in and they become the servicer of your loan. So once you're done and hopefully become a homeowner, MassHousing becomes the servicer where you will be making your monthly mortgage payments directly to MassHousing. To determine your eligibility, it's going to be really based on income, right? So there's different programs. You just cannot exceed the income limits, but that's why we have different programs, because each program has a different income limit to see if you're eligible for it. You're going to work with one of the approved lenders. They're going to assess your income, where you want to buy, what type of property you want to buy. And as you heard earlier through the presentation before me, there's a lot of different properties in Fitchburg and surrounding areas. So you want to make sure that you have those conversations with that lender, and they're going to guide you through that process. But we do have some general eligibility requirements. You have to be a first-time home buyer. That means that you've not owned a property in the prior 3 years and you don't currently own a property. You have to complete a first-time homebuyer class. There's somebody here that does first-time homebuyer classes. If you haven't taken one, let's go talk to Madeline at NewVue. She does our first-time homebuyer classes, and I present at those, almost all of them, in different languages as well. If you're looking at a multifamily home, and there was a big definition about multifamily homes, but when we talk about multifamily homes in MassHousing, we're talking about a property that's 2, 3, or 4 units. You're gonna live in one and rent out another one. There is some education that you need to take on those, to purchase that type of property, only because it takes a little bit different set of skills to manage that type of property, and doing that education is gonna help you understand what it's gonna take, especially with a lot of the fair housing lending and the fair housing laws that are out there for lenders, for landlords. You have to own or occupy your home. That means that you're gonna purchase a home, you're gonna live in it, and you're gonna occupy it as the owner for as long as you have a mass housing loan. And then for your specific situations, any other qualifications that are required, your lender will walk you through those and will let you know what else is required. Let's get into some of our down payment assistance programs. So the down payment assistance programs that are available with MassHousing, we have 3 of them right now. You can use the money towards down payment, you can use the money towards closing costs, or a combination of that, single MI premiums, as well as to reduce the rate. When you speak to a lender, they're going to guide you based on your situation. What's the best use of that money? Maybe you only need it for the down payment because you have money for closing costs. Maybe you have to split it up so that you can cover all of it. And I've seen those transactions where our down payment covers everything, right? So you just want to have those conversations with your lender to determine the best use. But one thing that I want to make sure that you are aware of is being able to combine programs. MassHousing has down payment assistance, right? There are other cities and towns, depending on where you want to buy, that may have down payment assistance. And if they do, and you meet the qualifications, guess what? You can use that money too. What does that do? It gives you more money for your down payment and closing costs, makes your first mortgage more affordable, and it gives you an opportunity to be able to take advantage as much as the opportunities that are out there that you can. So do your research. Do your research, speak to the professionals because they can guide you through all of that as well. The 3 programs that MassHousing has right now, we have the Workforce Advantage. This program is available to borrowers whose household income is under 60% of the area median income. And if you're eligible for this program, you're eligible for $30,000. It is a 0% deferred loan. I want to explain that a little bit so that you understand. The deferred part means is that you don't make monthly payments on this. The 0% means that when you do pay it back, you pay it back with no additional interest. So you borrow $30,000, you pay back $30,000. When do you pay it back? You pay it back if you sell the property, refinance, or you pay off your first mortgage in full. So if you refinance, you can combine this into a new first mortgage and pay it off that way. And usually you refinance to really lower your interest rate and make your mortgage payment a little bit more affordable. If you sell the property, you can pay it back from the proceeds of the sale. So hopefully that would be able to be an opportunity for you. The whole point is that you get that money for your down payment and closing costs to get into that first home. The other 2 programs with the MassHousing Mortgage Program are going to be dependent on your income as well. You're either over 80% of the area median income or under 80% of the area median income. And that will give you $25,000 either as a 2 or 3% 15-year fixed rate loan. This program does have mortgage payments in the hopes that at the end of 15 years, you've paid this completely off. But at 15 years at 2% interest rate, you're looking at a mortgage payment of about $168. At 3%, about $177. So that, along with your first mortgage, would get you that money as well, okay? If you sell or refinance, whatever balance is outstanding at that time would have to be paid off. The mortgage payment protection that comes with our conventional loans, this is something really special and unique to us, and there's no other agency that has this. But what does it do? Basically, if you become unemployed, MassHousing is able to cover the principal and interest portion of your mortgage payment for up to 6 months. You can use it for any 6 months, as long as you've maintained the mortgage insurance on the property, and you don't have to pay this back. So this is a great benefit to have because you just never know what could happen, right? So this benefit will help you stay in your property with that principal and interest being paid while you are looking for a job, and hopefully give you that peace of mind that you don't have to worry about that for a little bit of time. But make sure you always look for a job, right? You want to make sure that you are employed again as soon as possible. I talked about our down payment assistance program. Now, we also have first mortgage programs. These go hand in hand with our down payment assistance. So when you actually talk to one of the lenders, they're applying for 2 mortgages. Your main mortgage, this is going to include, this is going to be a larger mortgage. It'll include your principal interest, taxes, insurance, and so on. And then your down payment assistance, whether it's the 0% deferred or the one that's with 2 or 3% that you make monthly mortgage payments on. The Workforce Advantage, again, available to first-time homebuyers. This one's based on household income, and this one's very specific as far as where you're looking to buy. So it's based on county, but even within the county, there may be income limits that change. So you want to make sure that you, when you speak to one of the loan officers, that you give them an idea of where you're looking to buy. So that way they can give you the best program that's out there, and also give you, understand that you meet the income limits based on where you're buying. If you meet the income limits, you're eligible for the $30,000. This program doesn't have mortgage insurance, and as you start your process of home ownership, you will learn about what some of these terms are, but we can also talk about that offline if you had more questions about what mortgage insurance is and how does that affect you. That mortgage insurance is actually paid for by MassHousing. You do have the unemployment payment protection benefit as well. You can purchase a 1 to 4 unit property. You're using one MassHousing lender for the programs. With the FHA piece, it's a little bit different because you don't have the unemployment payment protection. FHA has their own insurance fund. But with FHA, what would be unique for Fitchburg is the multifamily homes. If you're looking to purchase a 2, 3, or 4 family home, you don't need your own funds for that type of purchase. Whereas if you did a conventional loan, you do need 3% of your own funds. So maybe FHA might be an opportunity if you're looking to purchase a multifamily home and use all of the down payment assistance for the down payment because you don't need your own funds for that. So that's one thing that would be unique for Fitchburg when using an FHA product with MassHousing. Some of the income limits, and I don't know if you can see that from all the way down there, but with the workforce advantage, if we're looking at Worcester County and you're a household of 1, the maximum gross income, and it's going to be based on gross income and where you're buying, is going to be $55,320. This chart is very condensed. I made it smaller just because the other one, you would not even be able to see it. But the income limits will go depending on household, 1, 2, 3, 4, and they continue to go up where you're looking to buy. So if you need more specific situations, again, our lenders, some of our lenders are here. I'm also here, and we can discuss that afterwards. But as you can see, the income limits do change from county to county. And with this program, again, very specific as to where you're looking to buy and how many people in the household. If you exceed the income limits for that program, then we look at the MassHousing mortgage program. This goes up to 135% of the area median income. If you meet the income limits for the MassHousing mortgage program, then you would be eligible for the $25,000 at either a 2 or 3% interest rate. The income limits for this program, much easier to understand. It's only going to be based on county and whether you're under 80 or over 80. You can still buy the same property types. You're still working with one lender. Again, with the conventional loans, you have the MI plus payment protection, not with the FHA loans, but still another great program to be able to purchase if you're at the higher income limits. For Worcester County, under 80, you're looking at $101,760. It's way at the bottom over there. If you're over 80, then the maximum is $171,720. This is based on borrower income, not household income, like the other one. Borrower income, so it's whoever's on the application. You could be one person, you would have to earn less than $101,760, or if you're 2 people, then you would combine the incomes and then you cannot exceed that income limit. So great programs to be able to get that down payment and also a wide range of different income limits. This is the part of the program where we're going to talk about homeowners. So the existing homeowners in the room, here's some opportunities for you with MassHousing. And I know that there's one big opportunity that a lot of people are interested in, and I'll go into more detail on that one. But if you're a homeowner, you can refinance with MassHousing. So if rates start to drop and you have your mortgage with MassHousing, you can refinance with us. We have a Get the Lead Out program. This offers low to 0% financing to remove lead paint from a property. One of our partners, NewVue, is an agency that does that program, and Madeline is very knowledgeable on that. A septic system repair loan program. So if you have a property that has a septic system, then we have 0 to low interest rate financing for those programs, for that specific situation as well, where you can repair a failing or non-compliant septic system. As a homeowner, we have a home improvement loan. So this one is to be able to do improvements to your home You're not adding a pool, you're not doing anything that is excessive like that, but at your home, you can redo the kitchen, redo bathrooms. This offers a mortgage for $50,000 at a interest rate of 5% over 15 years. So it's a little bit cheaper than putting things on a high interest rate credit card or doing a home equity loan that could be an adjustable rate. This does have income limits, but if you're eligible, you would be able to take advantage of that. We do have specific lenders that do these programs as well. The Energy Saver Home Loan Program, this is one of my favorites because you can borrow money to make your home more energy efficient. And we're so lucky to have one of our partners, CET, with the Massachusetts Community Climate Bank, which is powered by MassHousing. So if you have questions on energy efficiency and how do you make your home more energy efficient, and don't just think solar panels. Right? This isn't just about solar panels. There is an extensive list of things that you can accomplish with the Energy Saver Home Loan Program. And it also offers low interest rate financing. And you can borrow up to $100,000 to make your home more energy efficient. If you follow us on any of the socials, we just posted a testimonial of someone that just went through the Energy Saver Home Loan Program and did a lot of great work to their home to make it more energy efficient. And then the accessory dwelling unit program. This was just launched in March. This is something that has been so well taken, and people are excited about it because potentially you can add that extra unit to your property. And we have backyard ADUs here who shared the floor map of potential ADU. But with this program, you can finance either an attached or detached ADU. So a detached is going to be something that's separate from your house. It's not stuck to it, right? You're adding like a small home into a backyard. An attached is going to be stuck to your home. It could be maybe on a third floor, on a basement unit, or a third floor or attic unit that you want to convert into an ADU. So you want to specify which type of ADU you want to build. And depending on that, we offer either $150,000 in financing or up to $250,000 in financing. The attached is going to be up to $150,000, where you can borrow $100,000 as a fixed interest rate loan and then $50,000 as a 0% deferred loan. So similar to that 0% deferred down payment assistance program, it would work the same way, where you don't make monthly payments on the $50,000, but when you do pay back, if you sell or refinance the home, you pay back with no interest. So that's one way that we're making it a little bit more affordable for you to be able to finance the building out of these types of units. With the detached unit, the structure is $150,000 is a fixed rate loan, which is 20 years out of, I think it's 5.25% right now. And $100,000 is a zero deferred loan. So you can borrow up to $250,000 to build a separate ADU unit on your property. We have specific lenders that also do that. All of that information is on our website, and I can guide you through all of that information. We also have a flyer on the table over here by NewVue that can give you some more information. So it's a really great product to be able to add that ADU. Now, with ADUs, there's a lot that goes along with it, so make sure that you understand the resources and understand the process to be able to get that going. The QR code that you see here will take you to all of the information that I covered, because I don't expect you all to remember everything that I just said. But all of this information is right on our website. This QR code for home buyers can take you to contacting one of our lenders. For homeowners, there's the Energy Saver Home Loan Program that you can access through here, the ADU programs, and some of our second mortgage product options, but also our newsletter. We send information out through our newsletter once a month. We don't bombard you with information, but it provides you any opportunities, changes, anything that we have to announce, we announce through the newsletter. So it's a great way to be able to stay informed and stay in contact with MassHousing. And then finally, our team is available. We have a whole team, and I'm super proud of these guys because they not only work with our lenders, they work with our nonprofit partners, they work with our clients, and they can answer any question throughout any process that you have going on, whether it's purchasing for the first time, doing a home improvement loan, energy saver. Some of our developers, if we have developers in the building, we have developer loans programs as well. So our phone number, 888-843-6432. You'd think I remember that. I have too many numbers in my head. You can reach us Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. You can also send us an email. We have a dedicated email box that we answer questions through, the homeownership@masshousing.com email box you can reach us at. And then our website, masshousing.com, has a ton of information for all of those things that I just covered that you can look at your own time. And with that, I thank you for your time, and thanks for being here. I'll see you. Take care. Thanks so much.
Isn't she amazing, everybody? Thank you. So I just wanted to interrupt the program briefly. I have a special guest that came all the way from Gardner, Massachusetts. Mayor Nicholson has come to spend a little bit of time with us and just kind of greet the crowd. So I wanted to give a warm welcome to Mayor Nicholson of Gardner.
Appreciate you. Can we also get a round of applause for Maribel Cruz for putting on today's event, please? I promise I won't take up too much of your time. Hey, Mayor, how you doing? But thank you very much for being here today, and thank you to everyone who put this on. This is huge. Housing in our region is something that's really vastly needed, as I'm sure everyone here is going to tell you today. I'm proud of the work that we've done in Gardner. Just going to hit on some of the work that's done over there. We passed a full zoning overhaul last year to redo all of our zoning to allow tiny homes citywide for a tiny home development that's up to 10 per acre. We increased the size of accessory dwelling units to 1,250 square feet so you can get an extra bedroom, really. And we've tried to reduce a lot of the red tape that's there too. So I welcome you to Gardner anytime, just like I'm sure Mayor Squalier welcomes you to Fitchburg anytime. But thank you very much for having me here. Being someone who's about to turn 32, I want to stay in this region, and that only happens if we have places for people who are my age and younger to live here and call the community home that we've been calling our communities, our families have called communities for decades. And as someone whose mother moved here, when she moved to the United States too, she found her home here, and there's no reason for our family to leave. And that's by coming up with new avenues for housing and constructive work like this. So this is huge, and I hope this is something that continues to happen around our region. So thank you all for being here, and I look forward to the rest of the program. Have a great day, everyone, and God bless. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Nicholson. We do encourage all of our guests to have lunch while we are going through the presentations as well. We're structuring almost like a lunch and learn, so feel free to go up and grab some lunch. And I just want to say thank you again to our sponsors and to everyone that's attended, including Finicky Fork for bringing all the food and everything as well. Our next presenter is Rusty Daniels, and is a design program specialist at Center of EcoTechnology, and he specializes in spending his days taking ideas into action and develops and supports programs across CET's portfolio that help businesses and communities reduce waste, save energy, and make decarbonization radically easy. With a background in community outreach, building materials reuse, and program development, Rusty enjoys collaborating with partners, solving real-world challenges, and finding practical solutions that create lasting impact. He believes the best sustainability solutions are practical, collaborative, and making it easier for people to take action. Thank you, and please join me in welcoming Rusty Daniels.
How's it going? I'm Rusty with CET. Nice to be here with everybody. Thank you, Maribel. Nice to be here. And thank you, Irving, for a wonderful host. Just found out something really cool about Fitchburg. So about John Fitch, the whole story. What a wild story that is, right? About John Fitch, and then we got kidnapped to Canada and came back and found this wonderful, beautiful city here, Fitchburg. I love it. Cool story, Madam Mayor. Nice to meet you. Thanks for having me here. Gardner, that's a really nice community too. Love you guys over there. Furniture. You guys make some good furniture over there, so you guys are known for that. So I'm Rusty, CET. I live in East Hampton, which is your neighbors to the west. And yeah, we're going to talk about the Energy Saver Home Loan Program today. Here's a couple things on the agenda. We're going to talk about who CET is, and then we're going to do a little intro into the Energy Saver Home Loan Program, the role of the CSP, which is CET's role, and just go over some of these things here and open it up for some Q&A in the end. All right, so CET, who are we? Who is CET? So we're an environmental nonprofit based in Northampton, and we've been doing climate solutions for over 50 years. And so our whole idea is to make climate action radically easy as possible. We want to be able to make things super accessible to people. Our mission is to scale and innovate and implement environmental solutions that all the communities need to thrive. And we run a variety of different programs. We have about 65 different programs that we run. One of our big ones is the Mass DEP funded Recycling Works. That's a commercial waste reduction program. So we work with businesses all across the Commonwealth to reduce waste. That can be everything from food waste to construction demolition to weird materials, stuff like that. So we do that. We have a bunch of different energy programs. The big one is our residential energy program here. And so what we do, our whole mission is to decarbonize, right? So that's what CET does. We're decarbonization. We do that through two ways, through energy efficiency and through waste reduction. So that's our big things here. And so here's just some fun facts about CET, what we've done so far. For our customers, we've given about $5 million in lifetime savings, and this is about 90,000 annual beneficiaries of our services. It's all free. We're a nonprofit. All of our stuff is all funded and free for businesses and residents. And about almost 400,000 tons of CO2 annually, which is great. And about annually, we keep out about 46,000 tons out of the waste stream. So we're here trying to make our Commonwealth a beautiful place to live and to grow and to build houses and do all those fun things. So why are we decarbonizing? What does that mean? Right, so the whole point of that is really because the energy we use and the waste that we create today that really shapes the world for our future and for our future generations. So the more we can reduce waste and reduce energy is going to be a better future for our children. And yeah, we want to all live in a great community that's clean and that runs well and that is a good place to live. So that's why we decarbonize, get the carbon out of the atmosphere, which will slow down climate change. And that's what our mission is at CET. So let's talk about the Energy Saver Home Loan Program. So this is a great program. It's eligible for Massachusetts homeowners to reduce energy use, and we do that through proven decarbonization upgrades, and it's financed through a second mortgage loan serviced by our friends at MassHousing over there. Thank you. Give it up for MassHousing. They're awesome. Love them. So yeah, so what it is it's a really good way to homeowners to access capital to be able to do these energy efficiency upgrades, and it really ties into a lot of the existing programs like Mass Save and some of these other programs that are available. It all kind of works together. So it's a great way to get access to that capital. Really, it's in the form of a low interest rate loan. So that's the whole idea of that, is to get anywhere from a 0.5% rate to a 2% interest rate to be able to do these improvements. CET, our role is the concierge service provider, so we're really there to guide people through the whole process. We're like your liaison, your concierge through the whole process. So we know things can be confusing, like with paperwork and how do I do all these things, so that's why we're here. We also help with the rebate and incentive coordination. Like I said, this loan, so if you want to get this money and do all these energy efficiency upgrades, it works with MassHousing, with Mass Save, and it works with those types of programs, so you get those rebates and it all goes together. And financing is really right up front from the beginning, so you get those numbers right at the very beginning of the jump of the project. And like I said, it works all alongside any of the states and local energy efficiency programs, which is awesome. You guys asleep yet? Am I boring you? We're doing good. We're hanging in. Everybody got snacks, some coffee. It's good. Love it. So here's why we're here. This is really the core, is really to help families afford these energy efficiency upgrades and really be a part of our Commonwealth's path to net zero emissions by 2050. We got a long way to go, folks, on that one. So everybody needs to play their part in that. But yeah, that's an audacious goal, 2050 net zero. Hopefully we can get there, but we do that one house at a time with programs like this. So it really aims to reach those communities that need the support the most. We really try to focus on gateway cities, environmental justice communities, and just really meeting residents where they are, and through trusted partners, language access, and personalized support. That's really what our mission is, reaching those underserved communities. Really want to break down those barriers, like make it easy, radically easy for people and homeowners to take advantage of these programs. We don't have to jump through a bunch of hoops and deal with a million people. That's why CET is the concierge service provider. We're like your guide, your personal friend through this whole process. And we just want to make it achievable, like just like I was talking to Jeff about an ADU, I'd love to build an ADU in my house and just to provide affordable housing and like just jumping through all those hoops and knowing how to do all these things. It's really helpful to have that guide, somebody to just kind of walk you through everything and just be there for you to answer questions and just be that personal support there for you. So that's what CET does for this Energy Saver Home Loan Program. So we're really there from you from interest to implementation. It's super simple. Just give us a call. Hey, I'm going to upgrade my house and make it energy efficient, and then we'll walk through the whole thing. So that's really what our role is here. There is a couple more in the state. We cover most of the state, but if you happen to be in Barnstable County, as they say out there in the Cape, or Nantucket and the Islands, Cape Light Compact will handle that. And if you just happen to be in Andover, Cambridge, Haverhill, Lawrence, Methuen, or North Andover, All Energy will cover that. But we cover the rest of the Commonwealth. We're there. And Abode Energy Management is the decarbonization consultant. So they will help the homeowner identify all opportunities to reduce and lower their carbon emissions in the home. And we work with them to really help homeowners know what all that is and guide through that process. So it's like really homeowner, Abode Energy Management through the decarb assessment and helping the homeowner guide through those projects. And then we're there to help with all of that stuff there, to be that personal support. Yeah. Okay. So we're going to walk through the process here. It's pretty simple. It's 8 fun steps. So the first step is eligibility. First step is just give us a call. We'll talk you through the whole thing. So eligibility there, that's really to help that homeowner get the process started. The second step is we'll start working on the lender approval conditions and just making sure that all the numbers work out. This, like she said, the loan can be up to $100,000 for these energy improvements here. And then we'll set up the decarbonization plan. This really goes above and beyond your sort of Mass Save standard audits. That's really helpful, but this is like full decarbonization. We're looking at all the nooks and crannies in any way that we can really save energy and reduce the home's carbon footprint. Then we help you engage with pre-approved contractors, so you can also bring your own contractor if you want. There's a small process. So if you got your own contractor you work with, you bring them along to do the work, but we'll help you find the right contractor for you. And then the next step was the energy service provider will help review all those quotes to make sure all the numbers line up, to make sure all the incentives are all there, everything's working good. Then we'll do the final loan application, closing, and then the initial disbursement. And then comes the fun part, the installation. So that's the fun part there. The project will take off. And then you'll make all your final payments over to our friends at MassHousing. So that's really how that works. Pretty simple steps. And like I said, we're the concierge. We're going to walk you through the whole thing. We're there to be your trusted guide through the whole process. So let's talk about who is eligible. So the main core of this thing to be eligible is the home has to achieve 20% or more energy saving. So like if you're going into a house, say you already have heat pumps, you already have triple pane windows, you already have solar, there's not really much more on those larger things to do 20% or more. So that's sort of the key requirement is your home has to be 20% or more, the project has to reduce that energy. It works for any single family up to 4-unit homes. The home must be your primary residence, so your Cape house, that your vacation summer home unfortunately doesn't qualify, but your beautiful home here in Fitchburg will qualify. So that's great. And then there is some income limits like MassHousing said, and we'll go over a little bit of that, but and that's based by county. That is the AMI from 80% to 135 of the area median income. But 0.5% interest rate on a up to $100,000 loan. Like who's going to loan you money at a 0.5% interest rate up to $100,000? That's incredible, right? 0.5%. And if you are in the up above 80 to 135, it's only 2%, which is also pretty incredible. I wish I could get a 2% loan on a lot of things. And this is, again, a great way for homeowners to access capital to lower their energy use and to decarbonize and help the Commonwealth reach our climate goals. So here's just a little bit about the loan information. Like I was just saying here, it's a 0.5% up to 20 years. It is a second mortgage loan. So if you think about, $100,000 spread across 20 years at 0.5%, your payments are going to be really low. And the idea behind that is to sort of offset the cost. So if you can reduce your energy consumption by a lot, the savings that you make from that energy efficiency upgrades will sort of offset the cost of the loan. So that's kind of the idea. If you look here, $235 a month, and if you can reduce your energy costs by $200 a month, that's amazing. So you're basically paying an extra $35.85 compared to these numbers here. So if you're at 135% total, you get 2% for 20 years. Again, incredible. Who's going to loan you money at 2%? So here just gives you an idea of the area median incomes. I think my numbers might have been a little different, but this is from the MassHousing website, so hopefully it's there. But in Worcester County here, 98, 160 is 80% max, and up to 165, 645, 135 here. As you see here, that's sort of the area median income for this area. And this is for all people listed on the deed. So like, you know, if you have two people on the deed and somebody is making, you know, $50,000 a year, and then the other person is making, you know, multi-millions, it's not going to unfortunately qualify because it has to be everybody on the deed. But I'm going to put this QR code up here because we love QR codes, and that'll take you right to this in case you want to dive into those numbers a little bit more. Make sure that you qualify for the area median income. Oh, I'm on TV. Is this live? Oh, okay. I thought it was a Fitchburg public access. That'd be awesome. You guys have a public access here? Are they here? Oh, nice. Oh, it's good. Oh, it is them. They're just not live. Nice. Thanks, Mayor. I appreciate that. Got some good mayors in the Commonwealth. I got to say, Mayor of East Hampton, Salem Derby, he's a good guy too, like him. So here's some eligibility improvement stuff. So it really breaks it down to major and minor contributors. So the major contributors are going to be like big stuff, like air sealing, insulation, window replacement. Windows are so huge. So huge, just so much energy escapes out the windows. HVAC stuff, obviously we know about heat pumps. Ground source heat pumps are pretty big job, but it also covers much more too, like heat pump hot water heater, solar thermal, heat pump clothes dryer, right? That's great. Everybody loves dry clothes, I know I do. And then energy efficiency weatherization does cover like duct sealing. So it goes way beyond like your standard mass save stuff. There is a lot of opportunity here to do more than just heat pumps and help pay for that stuff. So those kind of come up to these add-on measures. So say you got an older home and you know you want to do different types of things and maybe your electrical panel and upgrade is all old. This program will help cover that. So say you want to do some battery storage or solar PV, it'll cover that. Say you want to tie in an EV charging station into your home and make sure the wiring fits that. If it all ties together to that 20% reduction in energy efficiency. So it even does like some non-structural stuff as you see here. Wow, that's really bright. Basement moisture, oil tank removal. Who here's got oil in their house? You do? Yeah. It's not cheap, right? And remove the tank is even more expensive. So this will help with those types of things. It's a really great program for that. It helps even with that, even if you're doing windows and these big measures and you can even remove your oil tank, like that's basement moisture and do all that in the process at 0.5%. It's pretty awesome. You guys staying with me here? Awesome, great. Everybody get some sandwiches, they're real good. Lemonade is good too. So there's also a solar exception pathway, heat pumps installed after January 1st, 2019, and up to 20% PV reduction after requirements. So that's really for homes that have had installed heat pumps after this date here. It allows that 20% energy reduction to be met through solar generation. And then, like I said, the solar system must offset the 20% of the home's total energy use. And that pathway really allows homeowners to build on their existing upgrades to meet the program's requirements. So what's cool about this one is that new fossil fuel systems are not eligible, but the homeowners are not required to remove their existing systems already in place. So, for example, mass save heat pumps, a lot of that you have to disconnect or remove your fossil fuel system. We'd love for you to get off of fossil fuel. Please get off of fossil fuel. But sometimes, each home, it doesn't necessarily work out that way. So the program doesn't require to remove that, but other programs you want to combine with it might. So like if you wanted to take advantage of the mass save rebates, you would have to do that, but we don't require that for this program here. And which is nice. So some people like me, I have a hybrid where I have a heat pump, but I do have my gas because you know sometimes it gets a little cold and my home's a little older, so that works out for me in my system. But you know that there is no new fossil fuel systems that can be financed through this program. So we've seen some pretty good success stories, and that's where I'm going to jump in for the rest of this presentation, talk about some success stories here. We've already done over 380 site assessments complete, over 100 loans closed. This is a newer program, and we've offered over 5 million so far, and we're real excited about that. So homeowners taking action. The whole point of all this is not only to make your homes more comfortable, but it's really to help the Commonwealth reach our climate goals, because we have pretty aggressive climate goals here in Massachusetts, and it takes every person chipping in to do that. And buildings, how we heat and cool our buildings, really is the most of that, which is crazy. So keeping comfortable inside your building, in your home. So which is also very important here, because it gets cold here. It was a brutal winter, right, guys? The last winter, brutal. I know, that's why I'm like, days like this, no offense, but I can't wait to be on that side of the door because it's beautiful and enjoy some of that sun. So we're gonna talk about our friends Jill and Steve over here. They're from Holden. This is a fun story about Jill and Steve. So they lived in the 36-year-old home for decades. It needed some major upgrades. The complexity and the cost, it all felt overwhelming for them. So they learned about this program. Everything changed. So with the guidance of the concierge service provider and our decarb consultant, they reached their full home energy assessment. They got a nice project, and we got support coordinating all that with the contractors. And basically, they were really able to take advantage of this program. Here's what Jill had to say. From Jill, we had no idea where to start, but CET walked us through everything. It felt like having a personal guide through the whole process. So that's exactly what we're here for, to be that personal guide, that concierge, love that word, to just guide you through the whole process. Right, it's a fun word, right? Concierge. My French is horrible. So here's another story. Jason from Brockton. Who loves Brockton? Anybody been to Brockton? Love Brockton. Great town, some good food there. Brockton's a great place. So Jason, he took advantage of this program. Him and his wife, they bought an older 3-family, and almost like homes here in Fitchburg, like 3-family. So they wanted to do heat pumps and really bring down the high energy costs of themselves and their tenants. And when they learned about this program, they realized that these payments and these could be affordable and these upgrades could be achievable. So here's a little bit about him. So older 3-family home, like I said, they did a 20-year loan at a 2% interest. They installed roof-mounted solar panels, reducing energy costs and CO2 emissions. 36% energy reduction in his house. 2 tons of carbon out of the atmosphere per year. That's what this is all about, folks, right here. 36%. Imagine cutting your energy use and bill 36%. That's pretty awesome. So especially, I don't know about y'all, but my bill keeps going up, right? So I'm pretty sure everybody in this room is paying higher electricity prices, right? So that we all know that pain. So here's some other things Jason had to say. It's a great program. I care about the environment, and I want to make sure I'm making sure I'm moving in the right direction. He also said, I didn't want to pay out of pocket. When I looked into private loans and the interest rates were high. Yeah, 2%, that's crazy. The concierge services were great. It was great to have a third party overseeing the process to make sure you don't get ripped off, which is exactly why we're here. We want to make sure that you take advantage of every single program and incentive and every dollar you can get. This is a very affordable financing option. The loan is a lot cheaper than making utility payments. See, that's what we want. We want a cheap, affordable loan in a comfortable place. 36%, that's incredible. So this is really what it's about. It's about real families, real homes, making that real climate impact. So many people want to do climate action but don't know where to start. Especially you can start right in your own home, and that's why we're here to help people do that and make this easy and affordable. So those are some great stories. If you want to see some more awesome stories, here's a QR code for you. There's a whole bunch of them on the Mass Community Climate Bank and MassHousing website. So many success stories there. We're doing great work here in the Commonwealth. So let's imagine, what if every home in the Commonwealth did exactly what Jason's did, right? 36% reduction, right? That's pretty awesome. There's about 3 million homes in Massachusetts here in the Commonwealth, and if every one of them saved 2 tons of CO2 per year, that's equivalent to planting 90 million trees and 6 million tons of CO2 avoided annually. 90 million trees, that's a lot of trees, folks, right? Imagine, 1.3 million cars off the road. Traffic would be a lot better, right? Would be. I wish we could do that. But that's the equivalent, right? So every home counts, every upgrade matters. If we could all do 36% energy reduce, and the big thing that's not listed here is everybody's energy bill cut by 36%. That would be great. Eversource might not like that, but I'm just kidding. So a really great tool here is on the Mass Community Climate Bank, powered by MassHousing. There's an energy savings finder. This thing is awesome. Please scan this QR code. This will tell you every single available state, federal, and local rebate that you have available to take advantage of. You just put in a little bit of information, and it spits out every single incentive that's available. It's great. So it'll tell you, there's even like rebates on like lawn equipment. There's like rebates on all kinds of things that you can get here in the Commonwealth to really make climate action easy and accessible to you. So please go to this, put your information in. You'll be surprised at how many rebates are available to you. And here's the information too. So like I said, it starts with just giving us a call. There's another QR code for you. Just give us a call. We'd love to talk. We love to talk about energy. We love to talk about decarbonization, climate goals, stuff like that. Like, that's why we're here. We're here to really make things easy and accessible. And with that, folks, that is my time. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Love Fitchburg. Great story. John Fitch.
Great job.
Thank you.
Actually, I have a question for you.
Oh, boy.
So with a lot of the homeowners making improvements to their home and kind of trying to figure out where to start, what's one of the biggest areas where homeowners are unknowingly losing energy every year?
Losing a lot of energy, especially older home stock. I know we went over that here. We lose energy windows and weatherization. So the best thing to do to sort of learn that is to just give us a call and we can walk you through that. So that's really where the energy loss is happening, especially windows. A lot of people think, windows are they're older here. Like mine had single pane windows, and I switched them over to triple pane through a program through the Community Action in Pioneer Valley where I live, and I was able to get my windows replaced. And the amount of energy use that's cut just because of that is huge. And windows are expensive. Like as I'm sure you guys have probably priced out windows. To get triple pane windows, that's $50,000, $60,000.
Yeah, easily
Just for the windows, right? So. Like that's pretty odd, but the difference that it makes with energy reduction is huge. So that's
Thank you. And now that you have a lot of programs available in Massachusetts, including MassSave, how are you guys working together to really simplify the process for homeowners?
Well, that's exactly why we're here. We're the concierge service provider. We walk you through all available rebates and incentives. And like I said, that tool that I went back to right there, the Finder, Savings Finder, it'll give you a good idea of every available rebate that you have. And what we do is we want to really weave in any programs like the heat loan is a really good one. That's 7 years at 0% interest loan. That one can work in conjunction with this loan. We have the MassSave energy rebates that you can get up to, I think, $16,000 for some homes for converting over to heat pumps. So that's $16,000 that a rebate you could take to, put back into the loan. You can go on a tropical vacation if you want, or you can, that's extra money that you could use, send your kids to college, whatever you want to do with that. So it all works with that, and we help guide through that, all available incentives and help the homeowner make it super easy to access that.
So can they combine their MassSave $25,000 0% loan with the existing loans you guys have available?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes. Now, I mean, it is a loan, so it is like, there is things factored in, like debt to income ratio, your income. There's certain things. So, I mean, if your credit score is like, 200 and you have a 90% debt to income ratio, it might be a little more challenging to access some of that. But, if you got an 800, like you and me, we got 800s, right? It's great. And you have a 0% or zero debt to income ratio, then like me and you, right? No debt. It's great.
That's right.
I wish, but we're thinking big here, dreaming here. But yeah, so like those things, it'd be easier to qualify.
That's great. And Russ is going to be joining us for the expert discussions later, so if you have additional questions, please write them down and we'll be happy to answer them a little bit later as well. But let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you. Thanks, Pittsburgh. Love you guys here.
Nice job. Thank you. Our next speaker, Madeline Mendoza, is the Director of Housing and Financial Services Programs at NewVue Communities, where she has dedicated more than 25 years expanding housing opportunities and strengthening financial stability for individuals and families throughout North Central Massachusetts. Throughout her tenure, Madeline has overseen a wide range of housing and financial service programs, including home buyer education and counseling, foreclosure prevention counseling, financial coaching, eviction prevention, as well as resident engagement and lead education and financing initiatives. Her leadership has helped countless of families access resources, build financial confidence, and achieve their homeownership goals. Madeline is also a HUD certified housing counselor who has met the certification requirements established by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. As a counselor, she's trained and certified to provide reliable, unbiased guidance on a variety of housing and financial services and topics. In recognition of her contributions to the region, Madeline received the Worcester Business Journal's 40 Under 40 Award in 2018 for her impact in North Central Massachusetts, and she was also honored with the Rising Star Award by the Massachusetts Association of Community Development Corporations in 2014 for her outstanding leadership in community development. The most rewarding part of Madeline's work is helping families navigate the path of homeownership and also empowering them to build long-term financial security. Outside of her work, she enjoys spending time with her family and friends. Please join me in welcoming Madeline Mendoza.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, my name is Madeline Mendoza, and I will talk to you about the pathway to sustainable home ownership and tell you a little bit about the process before starting the mortgage loan process. We want to make sure that folks are educated enough to ask any questions that they may have about the process, and make sure that they're mortgage ready. Instead of going to the lender first, we encourage folks to come to us first and get educated with the process. So a little bit about what NewVue Communities, who NewVue is a nonprofit organization, and we serve North Central Mass. And so it's from Athol to Harvard. It's a total of 22 communities, and we not only do housing services, but we also do small business development, and then we also do stewardship training classes to create new leaders in the community. And then also, I just want to make sure I don't leave anything out. We also do housing development. So we have a total of a little bit over 240 units, both in Fitchburg and in Leominster. And the reason why we encourage folks to come to us first is we are certified to do the work that we do. And pre-purchase counseling is very, very important before someone starts the process, the finance process. I know some of you already own your first home, but we encourage folks to share this information with your children or friends, family. So why does homeownership matter? It's not only to say, I own my own house. It's to create long-term sustainability, create wealth, generational wealth, for not only you, but also for your family. And then one of the things that we do, aside from the group first-time homebuyer education classes, we also provide the pre-purchase counseling, which is in a more individual base to make sure that the person is mortgage ready. And we tend to look at the whole financial picture. So someone comes to us and we determine whether or not they're ready. If they are ready, then we encourage them to take the first-time homebuyer education class. If they're not ready, then we encourage them to do financial coaching. Financial coaching is really sitting down with the individual, finding out what are some of the barriers that this person is facing in order to achieve the goal of homeownership. And we review their credit, determine if whether or not homeownership is right for them at that point in time. If not, then we're creating a long-term action plan. It could be short-term, six months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. It's not, we want to make sure that as soon as folks do end up purchasing their first home, we want to make sure that they can keep their home. And we want to make sure that they understand the process. If they fall behind, what do they need to do, and so on. So it's not only about taking the class, but you're also preparing yourself mentally, financially, making sure that you are financially prepared, because as soon as you own your first home, things happen, something breaks. If you're not fully prepared, then it's going to create a financial crisis. And we want to make sure that folks are not only educated when they purchase, but after they purchase, if they are financially struggling. Since NewVue is a HUD-approved counseling agency, we work with renters, homeowners, and for the homeowner part, we do provide foreclosure counseling for folks that are behind on their mortgage payments, and making sure that we are advocating for them as the counseling agency, working with their lender, and making sure that they have access to whatever the solution is for them to keep their home. Right here is the journey from start to finish. And this is a little road to homeownership that we have. We actually share it in our classes. So it's from the very beginning, making sure that folks create a budget, making sure that they have savings, they have reviewed their credit before visiting with a lender. Building your home buying team. Very, very important. And in here, you have trusted real estate professionals. You can start building your team today. And then once you do that, then it's pretty straightforward. You're getting your pre-approval. You get to start shopping around with the help of a realtor. And then once you start that process, you find that house, you make an offer, you get the accepted offer, you then schedule the home inspection. If that all goes well, then you're moving on to the next step, which is signing your purchase and sales agreement, moving on to finalizing your mortgage loan application with the lender that you choose. Prior to closing, you have to obtain homeowner's insurance, and then making sure you're doing that final walkthrough before closing. Very, very important. And this is actually something that we teach at the first-time homebuyer education classes. So one of the things that we want to make sure is that you're not only getting yourself educated about the process, but also understanding the different programs that are in place for first-time homebuyers. Making sure that you do have access to down payment assistance if that's something that you need, closing cost assistance. And then there are some loan programs that do come with a reduced interest rate loan program, and there's also grants and forgivable loans. I know MassHousing, well, Geanie from MassHousing was presenting on their down payment assistance, but there are some grants available that you can actually stack them with MassHousing. That way you have more money to put down. Where to start looking? So again, I mentioned that there are some folks here in the room that will help you with this whole process. There's also different banks and credit unions have their own programs. You want to get yourself educated with whatever programs that they have to offer, because it may be more beneficial for you to access their program versus a different program that you initially wanted. And you do have, as a first-time homebuyer, you do have a window of time where you can shop around. You can compare the interest rates, compare the programs, and make sure that you decide on a program that is best suited for you. What homebuyer education would cover is basically from the very start to the very end. And making sure that you understand how mortgage works, you understand how the monthly payment is determined, making sure that you're reviewing your credit and how to access your credit report. If you don't know how to, we would be covering that in the homebuyer education. Making sure that you're also budgeting for home ownership. Incorporating that mortgage payment versus whatever you're paying in rent. I know that rents are skyrocket, and we actually are seeing a big shift from renters to homeowners because of that. There is no control on rents at the moment. So NewVue educates about 250 to 300 families a year, and then out of that, we have about 115, 120 that do end up purchasing their first home within that year. So NewVue actually has two different options. We have a virtual class option, which is done through Zoom, and then we have an online course option for those that are not able to dedicate 9 hours of sitting down in front of your computer, in front of your phone. So we do actually offer the online homebuyer education course through Framework. These two classes, once you're done with the class, you will obtain a certificate of completion, which is a requirement for MassHousing, for MHP1, which I'll talk to you about that program in a little. And then if you're doing a grant program there is a Federal Home Loan Bank Equity Builder Program that is a grant program. You need to have a certificate of completion stating that you've completed a first-time homebuyer education class. There are many, many programs out there, and that's why we're here. We know all the stuff, we're up to date with all the stuff, and that's why we tell folks, come to us, we'll check everything. The way that NewVue checks the credit is not going to affect your credit. We do a soft pull on the credit, and then we'll create a plan in place, and then really just match you to trusted real estate professionals. We do have a lot of folks in the room, and we also have a long list of partners that we have worked with for many, many years. So this is a little bit of a breakdown of what we cover in the virtual classes. So the first class, we talk about the home buying process, the real estate team that you need to put together. And then we also talk about budget and credit. We actually have a lender who comes in virtually and presents on the pre-qualification versus pre-approval process, the mortgage loan process, the documentation that is needed, so that way you are fully prepared before starting the process. Class number 2, we actually have 3 different real estate professionals that come virtually to present. So we actually have a real estate attorney who presents on the legal process, the closing process, and the difference between lenders and owners, titles, insurance. We have a realtor who talks about their process, their role as your selected realtor, making sure that you understand what their responsibilities are as your realtor. And then we have a home inspector. Home inspector is very important just to make sure, what's included in the inspection, how much is it going to cost me, and making sure that it is a way for you to renegotiate the price if there's major issues with the inspection. And then the last class, we actually have Geanie, who does a lot of our classes, and then we actually have someone from Massachusetts Housing Partnership to talk about the One Loan program. We have an insurance agent, and then I talk about lead paint awareness. And if you do buy a property built before 1978 and it has lead, there is financing available. So Geanie from MassHousing has the Get the Lead Out program. And then recently, the Department of Public Health launched a grant program that would help with also de-leading. And it's a grant, it's not a loan. And it would cover statewide. And then I also talk about multifamily. For those that cannot purchase a single family, multifamily can actually be a better option for them because now they're getting income from the rental unit. So homeownership on a multi may be more doable for someone who is on a fixed income, does not have enough income to be able to purchase a single family. So we do talk about that as well. Is that my time? Okay. So aside from NewVue's classes, if someone is in need of a class and our schedule does not work with your schedule, mymasshome.org has a list of classes that are certified classes. So you want to be able to go on their site, and then they actually have a list of education. They actually have a list of multifamily landlord education. So if you do buy a multifamily, you need to take that class as well. And on the top, it says resources right here. There's a drop down that you can look at affordable homes throughout the state of Mass. Knowing your numbers, making sure you know your numbers before you start the process. You looked at your income. Is your income enough? You looked at your credit. Is your credit in good standing? Do you have money saved? Because there are down payment assistance programs in place, the lender also wants to see you have money to invest, money saved in your account, because some of those funds will be used prior to closing. So they want to make sure that you have money saved. And the true cost of home ownership, so we tell folks it's not only your mortgage payment, but also now you're going to be responsible for water, sewer. Your taxes are going to increase. Your insurance is going to increase. So when you are in the process of purchasing your first home, you have a budget. You have a max. You have a doable. So stay in between that. Don't go to your max, because 2 years down the road, now you can't afford your mortgage because your taxes increased, your insurance increased, because you initially went to your max budget. Here, so NewVue would be providing the housing counselor portion. We have lenders in the room. We have realtors in the room. So I'm not sure if we have home inspectors. No home inspectors? No? No attorneys in the room? Real estate attorneys? No. But you want to be able to create your team. And lenders actually have a list of real estate professionals that they work with. If you decide to start working with a realtor first, they'll have a list of whoever they work with. So making sure that you create your team is very important. Sustainable home ownership. So again, like I mentioned before, it's not about purchasing your house and that's it. We want to make sure that you are sustainable, making sure that you have the resources needed. After you purchase your first home, if you are financially struggling, if you need, if you're considering refinancing, if you're considering that you want to do some work to your property, you can reach out to us. We'll be able to navigate the resources that are available to you wherever you live. Like I mentioned, if you need help, you gotta ask for help. Don't wait until it's too late. When it's too late, it makes it more difficult, the whole process. So I'm gonna talk about the different programs. I know Geanie from MassHousing spoke about the MassHousing, so I'm not going to talk too much about that. But I'll be there to answer any questions. If you are seeking MassHousing's programs, I'm well-versed on their program. The other state program is the MHP 1 program, which is the Massachusetts Housing Partnership 1 loan program, and they provide loans to first-time homebuyers with a low down payment requirement. They do have down payment assistance available, but you need to live within a certain area. So they do actually have up to $50,000 available, but you need to live within 29 communities, which I actually have the list at my location. So Fitchburg is part, Leominster is part of it. So if you live in one of those, you may actually be able to access more money. There are a list of participating lenders on the MHP site, and some MassHousing lenders do also MHP, or vice versa. So when you are in the midst of looking for the loan program, the mortgage loan program, you want to shop around. I can't stress that enough. The MHP 1 does not have private mortgage insurance. Right here are the towns that are listed, the 29 communities. So you live in one of those communities, you can buy anywhere, and you can access up to $50,000. There are income restrictions for both the MassHousing and the MHP 1 loan program. The minimum credit score requirement is 640. Aside from MHP and MassHousing, shop around. Because there are different programs, like I mentioned before, some banks, credit unions have their own program. You want to be able to explore those options. And then also, if someone has a Section 8 voucher, they may actually be able to do a Section 8 home ownership program. So if you know anyone that has a Section 8 voucher and they're looking to purchase their first home in a year or two, have them connect with us at NewVue. We'll be able to assist them in that process. ask those questions. Once you start the process, make sure that you are not afraid to ask the questions. If you feel that you're afraid, then you don't have the right team. If you have the right team, you're not gonna be afraid. But if you are afraid of asking those questions, you may wanna switch who you're working with. But there is a list here of questions to ask. So the next process today, once you get home, check your credit. That's the way to start. Credit is very, very important in this process, making sure that you do your budget if you have not done one already. Start a savings plan, register for one of our classes. Again, if one of our classes does not fit your schedule, there are a long list of classes in the state of Mass. We can meet individually with financial coaching, pre-purchase counseling, no added cost to that. It's free. We get money from somewhere else. This is why we do the work we do. Look at those smiles. This is why we do the work that we do. Turning dreams into reality. Again, it's just, I've been with the organization for more than 25 years, and it's just ecstatic to see people that are unclear, unsure, can I really buy? We'll break down the steps for you. Let's see what you need to do in order to get to this. Thank you again, City of Fitchburg, Maribel, like always. Thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much, Madeline. Just a couple quick questions, kind of going over sort of like the training and sort of like what to expect when kind of buying your first home. Can you walk people through sort of like what the training environment is like and sort of like what to expect?
The training or the counseling?
The counseling, excuse me.
So the counseling is, everyone's different. Everyone, you can be 6 months out, a year out, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years. Let's see, we do a budget, which that's on the top of the list. We review the credit. We finalize the counseling session with an action plan. Action plan, laying out the different steps. This is my responsibility as your counselor. This is going to be your responsibility as the buyer. It all depends on your commitment level. It can, something happens, life happens. It can extend the timeline, but again, you'll have the different steps in place to be able to achieve that.
What is something that you're seeing over your years of experience that's really preventing families from becoming homeowners?
The market. Even though we do have buyers purchasing their first homes, but we're actually seeing if you are a single income family, not earning a lot of money, it's not going to be sufficient to be able to purchase a home at the very moment. But it's ways to, let's see how you can increase your income. Another barrier is credit. That's why we have the financial coaching program to really understand you can't ignore your credit. It will just it would either stay the way it is or get worse. So you have to look at your credit, see what you need to do in order to improve it. A third one, I would say, would be savings. Folks come to us, oh, I want to buy. How much do you have saved? Oh, nothing, but I thought that there was down payment programs. I'm like, hold on, we need to work on a plan so you are somewhat ready once you start working with a lender.
That's great, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Please join me in thanking again, Madeline.
I'll be over there.
Our next guest speaker is Jeff Bowman with Backyard ADUs. Jeff has been a small business home advisor and with Backyard ADUs for the past 4 years, helping families navigate the entire process from the first conversation through move-in day. He works primarily with homeowners in Maine and New Hampshire, as well as Massachusetts, and brings a strong understanding of local ADU regulations, design, and construction to every project. With a BS in business, Jeff has a practical, thoughtful approach. What sets Jeff apart is how much he enjoys working directly with clients, and he takes the time to understand what each family needs and helps them make confident decisions along the way. Jeff lives in Portland, Maine with his wife and kids, and his goal is to really help you guys understand what accessory dwelling units are and how they're creating possibilities for housing, for multi-generational living, and downsizing to rental income, and also flexible space for changing needs. This session will cover what ADUs are, how homeowners are using them, and the resources that can help determine what is possible. You'll also get practical look at what backyard ADUs process looks like, including feasibility, design, permitting, construction, and whether you're a homeowner, a housing professional, or simply just curious about ADUs, you'll leave with a clear understanding of how small homes can help address both personal and community housing needs. Please join me in welcoming Jeff Bowman.
Hi, everybody. I'm Jeff Bowman with Backyard ADUs. Happy to be here today. We specialize in accessory dwelling units. We also build single-family homes and multifamily homes. We're a modular construction company. I'm happy to be here, and thank you, Fitchburg, for having us. Okay, so who is Backyard ADUs? We were established in 2019, and we are a modular construction company. So we are a design-build company. Modular means that we're able to build off-site in a year-round, climate-controlled facility, and then we're able to bring the home to the build site and then set it on the foundation, finish the home out that way. It's a different way than a typical stick-built construction company, which might be what you typically think of as construction. We're a Maine-based company, but we have lots and lots of experience down here in Massachusetts. Over 50% of our ADUs have been built here in Massachusetts, so we are well-versed. And then we like to say we bring a little bit of the Maine cowboyism to Massachusetts and the forward thinking of Massachusetts up to Maine. So it's a nice balance. We have construction and employees in both states and actually in New Hampshire as well. So right now we're currently building an ADU a week. So that's our current average right now. And then we have another at least 80 multifamily units in the process as well. So we've figured out how to build ADUs, and the pipeline is nice and healthy, which is always great. So what is an ADU? This gets down to some nomenclature here. Typically, so an ADU is an accessory dwelling unit, which means that it needs to be accessory to a primary dwelling unit. So by right in Massachusetts, at the state level, they passed a law that allows ADUs on every single family residence in the state. But yeah, so here's what different ADUs can be. We specialize in new construction. So rather than refurbishing, say, a basement or garage, something like that, you technically could do that. That's just not what our specialty is. So let's see here. Those are the type of ADUs we'd like to build, typically detached. You know, usually you're thinking of a home in your backyard, something of the sort. Maybe it's attached, maybe we're building for family and we have access needs. And then sometimes we've even been able to cut off the roof of a home or a garage and then place the ADU on top of it, which is always kind of fun. So there's different ways to do ADUs, and by right, you can build these in Mass. Nice little bird's eye view. We like to throw in photos. I feel like I always get the feedback from folks. Put more photos in, so we tried to give you guys some photos here of ADUs we've done in the past. Some attached, some detached. Interiors. We have a professional photographer, which is pretty cool. So yeah, anyways, ADUs. So ADUs are typically used for family is what we see a lot of. So typically we're gonna be building for maybe an aging parent, maybe adult children, maybe it's a starter home of sorts on the family property. I've had a few here in Massachusetts where the parents they build an ADU, move into the ADU, so it's single floor living, nice and accessible, and then their children take over the primary house, have kids in there. It's the way to have separate locations while still being able to be close. As well, it's typically it's going to be more affordable than just building a new home somewhere else if you're able to reuse existing infrastructure like an ADU is able to do. We also typically build ADUs for people that are looking to do rental income. So either a guest house, do some short-term rental, long-term rental. I had somebody build it for an office space in South Portland, Maine. It's pretty cool. So there's different ways that people utilize these things. So ADU rules. So like I said, they're by right allowed in all communities in New England. So Maine and Massachusetts are leading states in our eyes for ADUs, and that is because they have less restrictions on the ADUs. So both states don't require owner occupancy, meaning that you could rent out, if you had a property and it's a rental property, you could build an ADU on that property and rent out the entire property, which is pretty awesome. Other states are lagging, but you know, it's what it is. So quickly on Massachusetts, since we're here, allowed by right, the state law is that the size limitation is half of the primary home or 900 square feet, whichever is smaller. Municipalities can be more allowing than the state laws should they choose to be. So it really comes down to where you're living, if they have more. So there's been a few communities down here in Massachusetts that we built in that they allow up to 1,100 square feet. So we've built larger than 900, even though by right, at the minimum, the state says you have to have these parameters. They may be required to have additional parking spaces. There's gonna typically be a few things that are stipulated with each municipality. Short-term rentals may be regulated by the municipality, meaning that you might not be able to have it be a short-term rental. So there's that, but they do not need to be owner-occupied. So just to kind of hammer home the size example here, with the max size set to 50%, if your primary home is, hard to see, 1,296 square feet, your maximum size would be 648 square feet for the ADU. It's worth noting that we, Liz and I, my partner, we taped out an ADU over here in the corner, so come pay us a visit once this is all done. We have a table over here, but then we also painted out, or taped out rather, a 600 square foot ADU, so you can see what that would feel like in the footprint. So 648 sounds small, but it might be right for certain applications. We do build that small and even smaller. I threw this slide in here because it's worth noting that ADUs do need to, an ADU would need to apply for a standard building permit, so it's not something different than that. There are things like tiny homes, which would have a different legal standing. They're a different size. They would follow a different law. So we would need to have a standard building permit. Here are some things that would need to happen. Should you decide to build with us, we would take care of all this back end things. Concierge, as Rusty was saying. We are not exempt from additional permitting. So what would additional permitting be from just the standard building permit? These are all items that we've actually ran into here in the state. Turtle nesting is my favorite. Salamander habitats, rodent migration plans, let alone historical wetland buffers. There's a lot of different overlays and factors that could go into building, not to scare people away, but Massachusetts does have a lot of these additional permitting items from municipality to municipality. We'll work through that with you if you decide to build with us. So we had wanted to give you guys just a quick rundown of what it is that we do, and this would be applicable to other builders as well. So like I said, we're a modular builder. If you decide to build an ADU and use somebody else, we love just people building ADUs in general. This would be a general pacing of things that you would anticipate to run into. So step one would just be having a conversation. What is your property? What is it? What's the goal of your ADU project? Have you talked with a lender yet? Have you figured out? It sounds like there's a lot of different financing options out here, and I've got some slides at the end that kind of hammer that home too. But just getting a pulse of who we're building for, what the timeline is, that type of thing. We offer just a conversation. Feel free to call us, email us, and we'll have a conversation with you about whether or not we'll ask prodding questions and steer you in a right direction, even if it's not building with us. That's something that we just do on our own. If you do pass that and it makes sense for you guys to have a feasibility study, what this is, includes a site visit. So it's going to be a custom quote for the project on your property. So we factor in permitting, we factor in what utility plans and utility connections there might be. How ready is the site? Is there going to be grading? Are we going to need to bring a driveway in? All those things that can happen with a project kind of get summed up in an estimate, and then give you a custom quote at that point in time for building an ADU. So if that looks good and we're still on pace and you figured out how you're going to be able to pay for this, there's lots, like I said, lots of different avenues for that. Typically you'd enter design, where then you would actually design the ADU, figure out what the finishes are, where the bedrooms are, as well as on the back end of things, we're going to be doing research with the town, with the utility companies, dotting the I's, crossing the T's on the permitting side as well. And then the fun part is construction. So fun image of our modular home being set on foundation. Like I said, we build off site and bring it in. So we'll build the foundation area. There's a big crane that's off site or off the camera here of the picture, but brings it in, puts it on the foundation. It never gets old seeing that. For us, typically, what's nice about doing off-site construction is that we're able to overlap some of the timelines. So we're able to do the site work at the same time that we're building the house off-site. So the time that your home and your backyard is under construction is really minimized. Typically 4 to 8 weeks for us to finish out one of our homes. Like I said, we've done over 150 homes at this point. We have a good process. All right. And then I wanted to plug mymassadu.com. If you go ahead and type this in, this is officially Massachusetts ADU website. So it has an awesome landing page where you can put in your physical address. It'll pull it up in a map view, and then there's going to be some generic ADUs that you can put onto your property. It'll have what your setbacks are, where you can build. It's a nice way to be able to kind of start dreaming what could fit on your property. There's also access to different loan programs. So I know we've talked a lot about lending and that type of thing. I'm sure there'll be more of that at the panel discussion. But there is a $250,000 loan from MassHousing for ADUs. It's called the ADU loan program, ADULP. So $250,000. About half of that is like a 0% interest loan, and the other half is it's a lower interest loan than what you would typically see. So it's a really aggressive loan, pretty awesome. And then also on the website, there's going to be a financing tool where you can plug in what your home value is, how much you still owe on it, what you want to do for your financing, and there's just some ways that you can kind of play around on your own if you're proactive, that you can kind of figure out what you can do, what your borrowing potential could be. So lots of good resources on that website. We helped them design the website, so kind of fun. And that is my presentation. Yeah, thanks.
Great job, Jeff. Thank you.
Thanks.
So why do you think Massachusetts has begun embracing ADUs, and why is it an important strategy for them?
Yeah, so there's a housing crisis here in Massachusetts. So an ADU is a nice way to be able to add infill to an existing community. Again, typically we're seeing ADUs be built for people in the community, for family members. It's a way to do infill rather than just sprawling a community. So it's oftentimes the infrastructure of the town is already set and already is able to handle more. So and we're able to have families be closer together. It's kind of a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely. This is actually really great and could solve a lot of problems.
Yeah.
Naturally, when you think about adding additions and talking about zoning setbacks and stuff, what kind of challenges or changes have you seen that's made getting an ADU easier?
Yeah, so the state law has been huge. Before the state law, the overarching state law, every municipality had different rules, and they still do, but there is at least the bare line that is the state law. Yeah, there can be a lot of, especially here in Massachusetts, that additional overlays and permitting that can happen can really slow a project down, can really be cumbersome to do, like wetland delineation and just those types of things can really add cost to the project, add time to the project, which we've seen in some cases actually be a project killer. So not to say deregulate everything, but there should be a balance there that I think we're working toward.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And please join me in thanking again Jeff for joining us for this presentation. All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. I hope you guys have enjoyed this event so far. We're going to be getting started again with the panel discussions, and just kind of set some simple rules. The questions are set up so that as I ask a question, if you feel that it's appropriate for you to answer the question, we'd love to get your feedback. And any one of you could answer the same question at any point, okay? And then if the audience has a question as well too, feel free to just let us know, and we'll go ahead, once we answer all the questions, we'll give you guys an opportunity to answer questions as well. But we did go ahead and actually grab some questions from the audience a little earlier, so we will have an opportunity to ask some of those questions as well. So we could go ahead and get started here. And we will start with one of the questions from the audience. What is the average cost of a 600 square foot ADU if there are no wetlands and specific challenges? So it's pretty straightforward construction.
I'll answer that one. So the average cost of a 600 square foot ADU, which we have a sample floor plan over here taped on the ground, typically between about 225 to 200 and maybe 60,000. We have a handout that has different sizes and general price ranges, so that's really helpful. We try to give pricing that matches across all the states, so that includes Massachusetts, but as I mentioned earlier, even if there are no wetlands, those types of things, every municipality is going to have a different set of hurdles that we'll have to jump through and be able to, that will likely have either cost implications positively or negatively. But I think that's a good range, and that's not just the house, that's a total project for us. So permitting, foundation, everything.
Thank you very much. The next question from the audience was, where do you suggest a commercial property owner gets more information?
More information on what?
A great question. That's what the question is.
Well, I would start with the City of Fitchburg Community Development Department. This is who hosted this event, and they can direct you to what you want to do, right? If you're a commercial property owner and you want to expand your property or renovate, or you're looking for grants, or you're looking for what you can do, what you can't do, that's always where I send everyone. I send everyone to Mary Jo Bohart, Economic Development Director, or Liz Murphy, Community Development Director. That's usually the first spot. You can go to the mayor, but usually, I'll push you off to someone who has more resources.
Thank you so much. And this question is actually for Jonathan Berk. Any suggestions on how to win over skeptical local officials on the benefits of increased housing production?
It depends what the skepticism is. I think that's the first part. I think the survey we've been doing in Fitchburg is really helpful because it shows, I think a lot of the opposition to housing tends to be, well, it's going to be other folks and they're not our constituents right now. I mean, the survey results show that 60% of residents in Fitchburg don't think that somebody could live here in 15 years, right? So it's not other folks, it is your constituents that are struggling to rent or buy a home in this community, and I think that is probably, I don't know, as a politician, you're the best read of that, but if your constituents are telling you they're struggling with something, you want to help them with that. I think more broadly, a lot of points that people forget are the less housing we build, the less mobile a community is, and the more our communities are aging. And that means less disposable income, that means less support for our small business communities. That is sort of an unintended consequence. I think a lot of folks don't realize when you talk about, well, more housing means changing our neighborhood character. Well, neighborhood character is naturally changing the less housing we build just by sort of forcing the same built environment on a universe and a world and a culture that doesn't, what am I trying to say? That doesn't fit the built environment that we built 50 years ago. It's changed, and we need our housing to adapt to that.
Great, thank you very much. And I think the next question kind of transitions well. Housing affordability isn't solved by one organization. How important is collaboration between municipalities, nonprofits, lenders, utilities, contractors, and community organizations? And any one of you are welcome to answer this.
You want to take it? I'll take a stab at that. Between contractors, utility companies, municipalities all working together, obviously that is what, if everybody has the same goal in mind of having housing and at that affordable, not even the affordable, but attainable housing for the communities, that is certainly should be everybody's goal. Yeah, I guess I don't have much more on that.
I'll just add, from
please.
the government perspective, right, from my perspective, I hear a lot from investors in Fitchburg. Particularly, we're seeing a lot of investment in multifamily, between 5 units, 8 units, 16 units, 32 units, 35 units. And I hear a lot of anecdotal evidence, that we're doing the right things by saying, we couldn't do this without the support of the city. This would not be possible without the collaboration and support of the city of Fitchburg, everything that we do to connect with state resources, city resources, just help with the permitting process, help kind of mediate between parties when it comes to the building department, the permitting, planning board, zoning board, all these kinds of different processes that needs to go through in order to get a project off the ground. So certainly, if you have your elected officials and your government employees that are all working towards the same goal of creating more housing, then we're gonna see that housing continue to manifest, just from government perspective.
Absolutely, thank you.
Just to second that, I mean, that's so important, because I think, as Jeff has mentioned, we have a regulatory system in Massachusetts that is really tough to build housing, and I think Jeff may attest, one of the most difficult in this region. Without local support from mayors, from city councilors, walking through that process, whether it be city regulations, state or federal, you're not building any housing. And some communities have used that to their advantage, and others, I think, are using that to a positive advantage, which is to actually produce the housing that our region needs and our state needs.
That's great. Those are great answers. Thank you. This next question is actually going to be for Madeline. If a young family moved to Fitchburg next week, what advice would you give them?
Welcome. Welcome to Fitchburg. Advice is all making sure they know the resources. As a Fitchburg resident, I'm a Fitchburg resident. I love Fitchburg, and it's really just connecting them to the resources that they may need to be successful, to be well connected with the resources that Fitchburg has.
Thank you. This is a great answer. Anyone else want to take a stab at it?
I mean, I could add, I would say that, for me, I'm really on the Facebook a lot. I find that is the most effective way to share information very quickly. Instagram, social media in general, LinkedIn, those things, just to share information about what's going on in the city, how you can get engaged, how you can join the community, those kinds of things. Show up to events, show up to businesses, start talking to people. That's the number one thing that I think will improve your life in a community, is to get to know the people within it and start to learn, where to go, what to have for breakfast. Oh, what kind of great events are going on? What's a great business? These kinds of opportunities, and from there you can expand in what you want to do with your business or your life or whatever.
That's great advice. Thank you. This question's actually for Rusty Daniels. Now, for homeowners that, this one cut out. Can you guys hear me now? Okay. For homeowners that are just buying their first home and are looking to do some improvements to their home, oftentimes they think about making some, significant renovations to their kitchens, their bathrooms, but they're not necessarily addressing the energy efficiency side, right? What tips would you give for someone like that?
Well, as much as we all would love to have a beautiful kitchen and bathroom, I know I would too, that doesn't give you a return on an investment necessarily. I mean, it does long-term and property value, right? So everybody, when you go to sell your house, everybody's looking at the kitchen and bathroom. Those are the two most important things that give value to inside of a home, but there's not immediate payback. With energy efficiency improvements, you're doing two things, I like to think of it. You're not only one, my favorite is supporting the Commonwealth's climate goals of reducing your carbon emissions and reducing that reliance on fossil fuels. The second thing is that you're seeing that return on the investment by lowering your energy bill, and that's really where it's at, is like putting that money into your home to then pays it back on that return of the investment by reducing your energy costs, which everybody, I'm sure, would love to do that. Even you, Mayor, I'm sure would love to reduce the cost of energy. Yeah, so that's really what I have to say about that. It's a win-win. I look at it, especially to hit the climate goals of the Commonwealth and New England and our country. So especially in a time when we need it so much.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you.
And actually, Madeline, I love your perspective when you're counseling homeowners that are considering buying their first homes. Do you guys sort of guide them through that when they're considering maybe, they know they have a limited amount of money available for down payments, their bank's telling them they have a certain amount of money that they have to work with to buying the house. Do you kind of give them coaching advice on what to do with that investment and with that money they have available to make the renovations?
Yes, so we actually, we do provide them with different resources for them to be able to reduce their energy costs. I always, encourage folks to do the MassSave program. That way you can get your free energy assessment, and we go from there. That's like the top on the list. We actually do cover
Energy
Rusty's
Saver Home
program
Loan Program.
in our first-time homebuyer class, just to make sure that people know about the program. So we do work with them even after they buy, making sure that they have some sort of plan in place, because utilities are very expensive. Food is expensive. Anything is expensive nowadays, so it's like, let's save here. That way it frees more money to do something else.
Great, thank you. This next question is actually for Jeff regarding the ADUs. When they are being designed and built, what sort of expectations do people have about energy efficiency? How well insulated are they? Are there advantages to getting an ADU versus building an addition? What kind of advice would you give someone that's considering one of the two options?
Yeah, so it really comes down to what your need is, whether or not you're building an ADU or an addition. What we do as our construction company, we do high efficiency, highly efficient homes. So we have the point of diminishing returns in terms of our value in the walls and in the ceiling. We do all new construction. We meet and exceed code. So a lot of what Rusty does is already built into our new products. So we also do take decarbonization very seriously. So we are fully electric, so no fossil fuels in any of our builds. In terms of that's what I would have to say about that. And then whether or not you do an addition, it really comes down to what's the goal of the project versus an ADU. So
great. Did you want to add?
Yeah, I was going to ask. Do you guys do like HERS rated properties?
We do HERS rating, blower doors, the whole thing. Yep.
That's great. Awesome.
Yep.
So that's.
To speak the lingo, we're under 2 ACH 50 for all of our homes.
Love that. See,
Yep.
that's great.
Actually, let's touch on this quickly. So can you guys really quickly for the audience explain how the HERS rating works?
Do you want to take a stab at that?
No, you go ahead. I was like, how much time we got? No, it's really not that complicated, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, home energy, what is it? HERS. Rating system.
Rating.
So it's a way to rate your house in terms of how energy efficient it is the broad stroke of it. By doing the new construction that we do and just having that in mind, there are generally rebates that you can have if you hit certain markers. And so we aim and hit and exceed those markers with all of our homes.
Yeah, and there's also lots of available incentives and rebates that are for new construction as well through MassSave.
Yeah.
So especially for putting in high efficiency appliances, and there is a whole separate thing for that. So Yeah, that's good to know too. So there's lots of ways to help save energy and reduce fossil fuel reliance.
Yep. That's great. This next question is actually for Jonathan and Berk. What is one housing myth, based on the research you've been doing, that people really need to stop believing?
More time for that one too.
The biggest one, I referenced a couple of them in the presentation. I think the schools one is the biggest one that comes up over and over and over again. I think it came up a lot in Massachusetts during the MBTA communities debates, where you would say, okay, your zoned capacity in the under MBTA communities, which was this sort of out there number that you had to zone for, but it would never actually really be built, and people would take that number and multiply it by 2 and say they're all going to have students in the school system at once. So if 800 units was your capacity, you're going to have 1,600 students, and you'd see signs printed up, you'd see flyers mailed out, and I think you really have to take a step back and look at the data that we showed, the analysis. I mean, the nationwide numbers are around 0.08 to 0.16 students per new multifamily housing unit. It's a little higher in single family. But that is the biggest myth. And then I think the other thing to consider is that student population is how you get your funding for schools from the state and reimbursements for the state. It's more complicated, and Chapter 70 funding is this whole amorphous thing that I'm not going to pretend to be an expert on. But student population is part of how you get money back. And folks will say, oh, well, okay, you just cut back your school spending if your student population drops. Well, the building's still there, the overarching staff are still there, the administration staff is still there. You can't cut all of that back. Those expenses are built into your budget. So I think that student population myth around new housing needs to be brought back to reality around what that actually looks like. I don't know if the mayor wants to jump in on that
Yes,
too.
please.
But.
Yeah, I'm just going to piggyback off myths. One thing I'm getting a lot, Jonathan, is as I'm sharing, promoting the new units that are coming online, especially particularly in Main Street, I'm getting a lot of, negativity on the Facebook, particularly, saying these are too expensive, unaffordable, no one can afford this, you're gentrifying the city. By creating these new housing units with these higher rents, you're forcing everyone to raise the rent, and now I won't be able to afford to live. Now, I've seen study in Austin, Texas, talking about the more housing units they create, it creates a lower, overall rent as demand grows, rent, supply and demand. But I'm seeing also competing arguments saying that, that's not necessarily a supply and demand. So I guess the question is, does building more units of housing help stop rent increases? Does it help decrease rent? Is it a supply and demand?
Yes, and I think that's an and comment. We're so far behind the ball. I think I showed some of the production numbers in Fitchburg. If you look at the average household size, we needed 40% more housing units to house the same population that Fitchburg had in the 1950s. Today, we haven't built 40% more housing, right? And any time in the past 3 or 4 decades, so that you have to catch up. So is building enough new housing right now in each city, is building enough housing in Fitchburg going to drive rents down? Not right now, no, it's gonna take a while. But it will prevent rapid increases. And you're seeing in some places in Massachusetts, rents have frozen or have come down a little bit based on that new supply. It's also a regional problem. You have a problem in Massachusetts where you have some cities that are producing housing and you have some that are not. In Salem, we're building more housing than anyone else in that region, and every city councilor I talk to says, well, what's going on with our neighbors, right? Marblehead was a notoriously vocal opponent. They're right next door. The housing market in Marblehead or Salem doesn't stop at the border. So it has to be a regional problem. It has to be a state-level solution. It's kind of why you see the state stepping in a bit more, less in Massachusetts than you do in other states. I think if you look at places like Texas or Colorado or California, the state has had to step in and say, here are the targets. You have to figure out what to do to hit those targets. Yes, it is a supply and demand problem. You'll always have folks at both ends of the spectrum, right? You'll have folks that always need some kind of subsidy. Right now, the problem is we have so many folks that need some of that subsidy because the housing prices are so high and so severe. So how many of those folks are waiting for subsidy? Can we begin to build enough supply to get out of the demand? And I don't know if you want to jump in on anything I'm saying to correct anything I'm saying, or respond to it, Maribel, but yeah, it is.
More space, more land.
Yeah, more space, more land. I mean, I mentioned the comment too about small businesses. Having more folks of means that can spend money at small businesses, support a small business community. I'm trying to think where else to go with this. I don't know, is anywhere, yeah, I could go off on this for hours, but yes, I mean, you also have to look at the cost to build right now too, and yeah, it's expensive.
The ADU thing that he's doing there with the ADU, that's great. The ADUs I find is like a really good way to give people that have larger pieces of property ability to build on their land, right? So like I have a half an acre and I have all this land, I just stare at it and I'm like, somebody could live there. That's really, I think, opening up programs, more and more awareness of ADUs and other situations where like, hey, this land can be built on, because we don't have a lot of it here in Massachusetts, and especially in Salem. There's not a lot of land over there, but like available like open plots of land to do that. So you have to be creative in these ways. And not that I'm in housing or anything, but I've been thinking about this as well, because I wake up every day and I stare at this beautiful piece of land and I'm like, I want to build something on there to give somebody a place to live. And how many homes are like that around the area where maybe the town, I don't know what it's like in Fitchburg, but I know in East Hampton where I live, like the mayor's very active on that, of trying to build like more places and incentivize homeowners to build on their land. So that could be another way too. But.
You mentioned Austin, Texas too. I think if you look locally, Beverly is a city that built a lot of housing quickly. And a lot of multifamily housing, and a lot of folks said, well, it's just folks from Boston coming in. A lot of the folks who moved into those apartments sold homes in Beverly. So you opened up family housing. And I think one of the things we forget is we need to build more housing, but we also need to right-size our housing supply. So we need to build options for folks to downsize. So the person moving into a new apartment or condo or rental unit is moving from somewhere. And what unit of housing did they open up that maybe didn't fit their housing needs, and maybe needed lower monthly expenses, and they can open up an opportunity for a family to come in and occupy a unit that was just empty nesters before.
Even what they do with the old mill buildings around here, that's great too. A lot of the work, and I know Fitchburg's got a lot of beautiful old we can go down this road a whole bunch, but these factories and these beautiful things, East Hampton's doing that where we live. There's these beautiful old factories that they've turned into housing, and it should be able to be affordable, but it's always about cost and then making profitability on that. So it's like, how can we incentivize even the construction companies? And this is a big thing. I could keep going on this for hours, but this is
I'm gonna just add, because so NewVue does housing development, and it's costly, and we at least have the privilege that we can get funding to be able to do big projects like this. We actually recently did Fitchburg Arts, which is a total of 68 units. Not a private investor would be able to do that. And now we're actually doing one in Athol, which is bringing more units online. Exciting. And there's actually going to be senior housing as well. Awesome. Just so seniors can move into an affordable unit, free up their single family house to create more home ownership for individuals that are looking to buy.
That's a really good point too.
Thank you so much. That was great answers. I just have two more questions, and one of the questions is actually related to a topic that not a lot of people like to talk about. It's very sensitive, but it's a reality of life, and it's foreclosures, right? What is something that you can advise someone who's buying their home for the first time in a very competitive market and is maybe overbidding on the home just because they like that area and putting themselves in a really tight financial constraint? What advice would you give for someone like that?
So we cover this in our homebuyer class, making sure that folks don't go to their max budget. We've actually sadly seen people that bought a year ago come to us for foreclosure counseling because they cannot afford their mortgage payment. Life happens, and that's why we make sure that people are educated. So it's making sure that they have the resources needed for them to be able to access help earlier on and not wait. As they wait, it makes it a little bit more difficult to work with the lender to try to find a loss mitigation option for them to keep their home. So we tell them, reach out to a HUD agency, HUD counseling agency early on. As soon as you got laid off, lost income, had an unexpected emergency that you're not able to make your mortgage payment, seek for help.
I just want to add one thing to this too, is I'm just curious, with the ADUs, is it possible that someone that hasn't quite entered foreclosure, still has good credit or decent credit, can they use that as a rental income to maybe prevent that foreclosure and have that be an option? Just curious.
Yes, absolutely. You definitely can rent out the ADU and or the primary structure as well. Yeah, that would be an option. And then what we were talking about earlier too, in terms of infill of housing and cost of housing, ADUs are typically a nice way to be able to check a couple boxes of being able to provide housing for family. That's really who we're typically building for, where people, mom and dad, move out of their big house, either rent it or their kids move into it with their kids and they live in the backyard. I've got 50 stories where that's the case, personally, so.
Well, I know a lot of people too, like their city taxes are wrapped into their mortgage payment. So I don't know if there's any programs maybe here in Pittsburgh. I don't know if like that does happen. Is there a way that you can apply or get some sort of relief, temporary tax relief from the city to lower that mortgage payment at all? Is there anything like that? No? No? Just thinking, because most of that, like I know my mortgage is my insurance and the tax, like everything's wrapped into that. And if something like that happened, it's just like what I actually, you know, the actual cost of the mortgage, even mortgage insurance is wrapped in all that too. So all these extra things, you know, that maybe could be deferred. I don't know if there's anything like that available, but.
So for the insurance part, we, you know, we encourage homeowners to shop around.
Oh, yeah.
They can change insurance companies. I actually did this recently because my insurance went way up, and shop around to get your insurance lower. As far as, I actually had a question for you on the ADUs. Once you create and once you have an ADU in your lot, how much taxes am I going to pay extra?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, so the taxes question. If you build an ADU, you're essentially, it would be similar as if you did an addition. So it's the livable square footage that you added on. So typically your property tax is going to be on how big your house is, how many square foot, that type of thing. So it would be an incremental increase in additional living square footage.
But your property value also increases with that as well.
Your property value increases as well. I wouldn't say that it is a one-for-one. I would say, you know, don't expect to pay $300,000 for the ADU and for sure have your property value go up by $300,000. That could not be the case. That's reality. But it typically, most of my customers, it makes sense because we're having families live closer together. It's higher quality of life, that type of thing.
Thank you very much. And the final question here is actually more for the community. And how can residents become better advocates for improving housing within their own neighborhoods and become advocates for their community members as well? And you guys are all welcome to answer that. Would you like to?
How to advocate for improving housing in your neighborhood, in your community?
Yeah, let me clarify that question. This was actually a conversation that I had with a homeowner in the past, and they're trying to figure out resources within their own communities. And so the idea is encouraging homeowners and residents to become stewards in their communities and encouraging them to collaborate with organizations like NewVue and these great organizations that are here with us today to learn about their rights, what programs are available to them, and really the community to come together to actually support each other so that they're not so dependent so much on municipalities, but rather using the resources that are regional and local to them.
I'll just throw out to start, you can start as small as helping your neighbors. Maybe you have senior neighbors that have a challenging time keeping up with yard work or exterior maintenance, you know, spending some time learning what the challenges are and just helping. You know, helping your neighbor shovel their driveway or, you know, mow the lawn, weed whack, you know, help with a broken light, you know, helping your neighbors. I mean, something like that, it would be very, very inexpensive and would cost you a few hours, and you'll gain incredible community momentum, community support, and help improve your neighborhood block by block. From there, you can go up to the community resources that are provided through like NewVue Communities, and incredible community resource at NewVue Communities right here on Main Street. They have stewards programs where you can connect and collaborate with the community, learn what resources are available, learn what grant programs. Come talk to the city and the government and learn what resources are available beyond just loans. You know, there are a lot of opportunities there to improve our neighborhoods in that capacity.
That's great.
I'll take a little bit of an angle, a different angle on this. I mean, I think, I served on the planning board in Salem for 4 years, and I think we've heard from 25 different people in a city of 45,000 over those 4 years. And a lot of times that's only one opinion and one perspective. So I think it's important that if you want to support your community, your neighbors, whether it's new housing, whether it's reforms to housing policy, zoning policy, whatever it is, you show up. Show up to your zoning board, your planning board, your city council meetings. You set up meetings with city councilors, the mayor, and talk about your concerns and things you want to see. And if you hear about projects in your community or broad master planning processes, to connect with Liz in the planning office and support those efforts and get involved in those efforts and make sure your voice is heard, but that you're also making sure that your city is hearing both voices. Because I think too often, and this question came up a little bit earlier, but too often I think elected officials only hear folks when they want to complain about something or fight against something, not fighting for something and supporting something.
That's a good one. You know, often we only hear from the anti-everything crowd. And sometimes, you know, councilors or elected officials, they get afraid they got to get elected in the next year, so they don't want to go too far against the crowd. So, but if the crowd is speaking for what's right and what's good and what's just for the entirety of the community and not just for my backyard, then I think it really makes a huge impact on the city as a whole.
Yep, that's awesome. Yeah, really great points. Thank you guys so much. I think that sums up our summit. Thank you guys so much for joining us. For those that are joining us and watching the video, thank you again and thank you all of our expert panels for joining us as well too. This was some really great discussions and we really appreciate it. Thank you. Thank you.